Chapter 771, Day of Retribution. Early morning in the Fire Realm was nothing more than the red sky turning redder. The dark smoke from the volcano covered the air as far as one could see from the floating castle. There were no early singing birds, golden sun rays on the horizon, or fresh air smell. At that moment, Dante was washing his face in front of a mirror. He looked up to see a face with hazel eyes and red hair staring back at him. Dante grinned at his own reflection. He was proud of how dashing he looked in the silver armor. One more day, Dante, one more day, he slowly spoke to himself. Dante was assigned to guard the Dark Lord's cage by Mutrad. It had been 3 weeks since they captured the Dark Lord. Until now, the Dark Lord had done nothing but got tortured by various strangers. Dante got a chance to watch the interrogation, which wasn't pretty. Dante and his team were ordered to guard the castle with complete caution 2 days ago. 50 years had passed since the Arctic Hall assigned him and his team a task. They were one of the elite squads of the Arctic Hall. In Dante's 500 years of life, this was the 3rd time that he was ordered to bring his entire team on a mission. When they were summoned, Dante expected some action. However, he and his team experienced nothing but utter boredom. They stood outside the Dark Lord's cage and watched him getting tortured and beaten. Dante heard so much about this so-called Dark Lord in the mission briefing, yet he seemed weak. The Sky Hall managed to capture him with a single cage. Time to return to my post, Dante sighed. He combed his hair back before leaving the room. He headed for the Dark Lord's cage as usual. On his way, he met several soldiers wearing sky blue armor. Apparently, the Sky Hall sent these soldiers as additional backup to guard the Dark Lord. Eventually, Dante reached a huge metal door flanked by 2 half-immortal guards. They were his men. One of them was a red-haired woman. "Hey boss," the red-haired woman greeted Dante with a grin. "Anything interesting happened?" asked Dante. "If you call Isaac here yawning and bitching about his life action, I have seen plenty of it," the red-haired woman rolled her eyes. "I didn't bitch about my life, you bitch," the golden-haired soldier beside the woman snarled. "Don't mind, Mila. She is just messing with you," Dante chuckled. "Open the door. Need to see our prisoner." Mila and Isaac pushed open the door as the runes began to radiate faint light in the door. Opening the door exhausted their strength. It took 2 half-immortals to open the door. After the door opened, Dante saw the Dark Lord's cage. Isaac and Mila gawked at the Dark Lord. 6 other half-immortals stood around the cage. When Dante entered the hall, all of them bowed toward him. Dante nodded as he walked toward the cage. Since this was early morning, he had a chance to see the Dark Lord up closer. Once the interrogators entered the hall, they would send him and his team out of the hall. The Dark Lord seemed calm and collected, leaning against the glass with no worries in the world. "Are you going to try something?" Dante asked the Dark Lord. "Have some patience, my friend," the Dark Lord answered. "I am going in." Seeing Dante talking to the Dark Lord, Mila couldn't stay still. She wanted to have some words with the Dark Lord too. "Hey, wait," Isaac tried to stop her, but she was already on her way toward the cage. "Sorry, boss. I couldn't stay there," said Mila. "It's cool. I don't think something will happen. Am I wrong?" Dante asked the Dark Lord. "Maybe. Maybe not. Come on, dude. Do something. You have so much hype around you," said Mila in a playful tone. "You guys have families?" asked the Dark Lord. "Why? You want to threaten us using them? That's cliché, don't you think?" Dante replied to the Dark Lord. "Nah," the Dark Lord slowly shook his head. "I just want to give you some time to talk with your loved ones. After all, when I come outside, you will all die." The Dark Lord spoke with a gentle smile as though he was having a normal conversation with them. "Dying will be better than standing out there listening to Isaac bitch about how his woman cheated on him with another man." Mila rolled her eyes. The Dark Lord chuckled. "You guys seem cool. I might feel bad after killing you," said the Dark Lord. "So, is this what you do? Daydreaming all day?" This bad boy will hold you here forever. It sucks to be you, Dante said. You guys shouldn't believe everything the Sky Hall says. Ask yourselves, if I am their #1 priority, why aren't they here? Mila and Dante remained silent for a while as the Dark Lord continued. They didn't send their strongest because they didn't want them dead. Instead, they are using you. I bet except you, the others are just half immortals. The Dark Lord pointed his finger at Dante. To Dante's surprise, he was right. Except for him, all of his team members are at the half-immortal stage. If I am not wrong, you are a half-immortal yourself. You might be strong, but no way you can walk past all of us, said Mila. I am used to creating ways when there is none. If you are hoping your minions will save you, I have bad news for you. No one is coming. The last time I heard, they are not even making an effort to find out where the hell you are, said Dante. To their surprise, the Dark Lord just smiled. I know. I ordered them not to, said the Dark Lord. Mila frowned. And why would you do that? Because I don't need them, the Dark Lord shrugged. Well, if you are going to escape, please do it soon. I am getting bored to death here, Dante sighed. Careful what you wish for, my friend, said the Dark Lord. As they were talking, Dante heard footsteps. He and Mila turned around to see Mutrad, Alicia, Norvin, and a few others walking toward them. It seems like our small chat is over, said Dante. A pity, Dante and Mila took a step back from the cage. I am glad you are here, Alicia, Dante heard the Dark Lord. He saw Alicia's eyes glimmer with cold, murdering intent. For a few moments, they all stood outside and watched the Dark Lord in silence. He slowly stepped toward the glass. How is Peter doing? Michael asked Alicia. There was a strange smile on his face. Looking at him, Mutrad couldn't help feeling dreadful. Ah, don't be mad, Alicia. Peter would love to get out of his house. How long till he stepped outside? Michael rubbed his chin. Suddenly, the runes around and inside the cage flickered. What's happening? Mutrad panicked. Alicia frantically looked around as the cage containing Ghost trembled. Do you know what I like about the runes the most? It's so easy to hack them. You can turn your enemies' weapons against them with a few minor changes, said Michael. Under their shocked gazes, Michael grabbed his broken right arm and jerked it. Mutrad heard the bones inside his arm cracking. In a few moments, he clenched his fists. How did he heal himself? Norvin asked. Alicia flicked her wrist, trying to open the cage. However, the cage refused to listen to her commands. Michael turned around, walking toward the center. Stop. Alicia raised her voice. She conjured a sword made of chilling ice. Take one step further, and I will send you straight down into the volcano, Alicia threatened Michael. She pointed her sword at the chains holding the cage. You wouldn't do that, Michael turned around. You want to test me, Alicia growled. Mutrad's mind went blank. He feared something would happen, and it did. To Mutrad's utter shock, a bright light flashed across the cage. They all closed their eyes. When they opened their eyes, someone else stood beside the Dark Lord. Peter. Alicia shouted. Where am I? It took Peter a few moments to realize he was teleported from his home. He saw Alicia shouting at him. The others around Alicia looked pale. Hello, Peter. Peter felt a chill when he heard the voice. He recognized the voice almost immediately. How could he now? He was reliving what had happened 2 years ago at the tournament in his mind ever since. He slowly turned his head to see a man with a bushy beard and long hair staring at him. The face seemed unfamiliar to Peter, but those eyes betrayed the person behind all the changes. Ghost, Peter clenched his fist. Seeing Ghost up close, Peter's whole body trembled. The veins in his eye popped, turning his eyes blood red. His life was turned upside down by him. Not only Ghost revealed his identity to the world, but he was humiliated. Ghost literally wiped the floor with him. Those images were eternally etched into his brain. Every time Peter closed his eyes, he saw how Ghost humiliated him in front of thousands of people. Not a single night passed without Peter thinking about ending his life altogether. Only the flame of vengeance kept Peter from doing so. Arg! Peter roared as he threw his fist at Ghost. Before the punch landed on Ghost's face, he simply caught Peter's fist. No, 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 Alicia muttered as she focused all her energy on opening the glass. Yet, the glass didn't even move an inch. The runes responsible for opening the cage lost their glimmer. Michael grabbed Peter by his throat and lifted him off the ground. Peter squirmed in his hand as Michael turned his gaze toward Alicia. Peter's face slowly turned pale. He gasped for air. Mutrad, we need your orders, Dante asked Mutrad. We need the cage opened now, Norvin shouted. The muscles in Norvin's body bulged as he dashed at the cage to break the glass. I wouldn't do that if I were you. When Norvin was about to punch the glass, Michael stopped him. P1E's visit N0VE1B, in. T, punch the glass hard enough, and the cage will fall straight down. Peter won't like that, will he? Let him go, Alicia growled. What did I say? Every time we do this dance, it always ends in bloodshed. Chapter 772, System back online. A few hours before Dante and his team came to meet Michael, he was leaning against the glass and waiting for the system to come back online. Come on. Come on. Come on, Michael could barely stand still. He wasn't only feeling excited but an uncontrollable rage to slaughter every single person in the castle. Over the past 3 weeks, they tortured him, asking about a portal to higher realms. Michael had no fucking idea where the portal is or how to open one. However, they were completely wrong either. With the system, he could open a portal if he needed one. But Michael doubted the current system level would be able to open portals to higher realms. After spending 2 years with the system, Michael had a pretty good idea about the system's capabilities. If it wasn't for the APD slowly healing his body, he would have been in a much worse state. He couldn't wait to see the look on Alicia's face when he paid her back for everything she did. He locked his gaze on the countdown timer in the corner of his sight. In 10 minutes, the system would be back online. With the system reaching level 8, he could finally buy ores and materials to forge new weapons and armor. He needed a pair of swords suitable for the Dark Lord. The 6 guards around the cage had no idea Michael was preparing to break out of the cage. Second by second, the countdown timer moved toward the 10-minute mark. Fortunately, Michael didn't keep anything important in his space ring. But still, Michael hated losing a couple of healing potions, a couple of millions of gold coins, and some spell scrolls. Can't it go any faster? Michael asked himself, looking at the timer. 10 minutes felt like an eternity to him. It had been a year since he interacted with the system. Situations like this made him miss the system the most. Granted, Michael still had some plans in his mind to escape the cage even without the system. But having the system made everything so much easier and more interesting. The system will come online in 5 minutes, Michael smiled when he heard the system. He walked left and right in the cage. Soon, seconds turned minutes, and eventually, Michael heard a loud ringing in his head. His whole body felt an electric bolt running down his spine. He experienced acute pain in every fiber in his body. It felt like his very soul was screaming in pain. But soon, the pain and discomfort turned into a soul-soothing feeling. The system upgrade is completed, current system level 8.0. The host can now have up to 50 subordinates. The host has received a legendary token to get free 5-star level specialization as a gift for upgrading the system. Finally, Michael almost shouted in excitement. He immediately accessed the system to take a look at his status window. Host, Michael Cultivation level, half immortal level 10 experience points, 0/5,000,000, 26 million experience points remaining to be consumed, badass points, 2,000,000 skills and spells, Wind Blast, LVL 6 Ultimate Form Level 1 Eyes of Doom, LVL 5 Ultimate Form Level 1 Responsive Shield, LVL 8 Environment Scanning, LVL 8 Ignitia, LVL8 Ultimate Form Level 1 Silenes, LVL1 Lightning Dash, LVL6 Ultimate Form Level 1 Energy Devour, LVL5 Soul Eater, LVL5 Death Range, LVL3 Eyes of Darkness, Normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others' Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions Cloud of Darkness, Lucifer. Weak-willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless spell caster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques: Swords of Destiny, 98% Mastery Ring of Fire, 96% Mastery Serpent Maga, 98% Mastery Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford. Status: Injured Goals. Control the world, grow the Order of Death. Utility function: Banker, LVL 5, ratio, 1000 gold coins, 40 badass points, runic teleportation, X-ray vision, also integrated with Eyes of Darkness, wealth, 45 million gold. Special trait, 5-star Alchemist. 5-star Inventor. Subordinates: Gaia, Warrior, loyalty level 100%, Raylene, 5-star Chef, loyalty level 99%, Arya, Assassin, loyalty level 86%, Dead Heinberg, Warrior, loyalty level 45%, Maxine, Warrior, loyalty level 98%, Tiberius, Warrior, loyalty level 85%, Sadie, loyalty level 70%, Ricky, loyalty level 94%, Daniel, loyalty level 98%, Titus, loyalty level 80%, Optimus, loyalty level 80%, The Big Bertha Crew, Pirates, loyalty level 93%, Base of Operation, The Abyssal, The Crypt, The Dark Ocean Familiars, Nightmare. Royal Dragon, Vidora, Three-Headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation, Wind, 30% Mastery, Fire, 30% Mastery, Lightning, 40% Mastery, Darkness, 40% Mastery. The first thing he noticed in the status was the humongous amount of experience points left unconsumed. Over the year, he amassed 2 million badass points, which Michael planned to use to upgrade his spells. Except for Ricky, who lost 5% loyalty, the loyalty level for the others had a leap. Ricky's situation was understandable to Michael, so he didn't mind the 5% drop. The next change was the increase in his elemental manipulation. To be honest, Messiahel felt frustrated with the numbers. It seemed like no matter how much he used them, the rate didn't go as high as Michael would like to. Looks like the host is in deep trouble, Michael heard the system's voice. Welcome back, Michael greeted the system with a friendly tone. It is good to be back, so, are you going to go offline for a long time whenever I upgrade you from now on? Michael asked the system. Of course not. Version 8 brings more functionalities and capabilities. Hence, the long upgrade time. Glad to hear that. The system went offline for 1 year, and you got yourself captured. To Michael's surprise, the system sounded like Pink, his sidekick back on Earth. Why do you sound like Pink? The system accessed your subconscious mind and picked the voice you desire the most, said the system. It wasn't wrong. He did miss the sound of Pink in his head. The two of them were the deadliest pair on Earth. Speaking of Pink, Michael wondered how she was doing on Earth. Judging by her skill set and the payment she received for each job, she could live a lavish and peaceful life somewhere safe. For now, Michael had to worry about himself more than about others. He wanted to check the system store, but before that, he wanted to contact Gaia. He accessed the system and took out an earpiece. He put it in his ear without the guards seeing. The system requires 500,000 badass points to break the runes that keep you weak. Do it, but don't make it obvious. Also, I want you to make some changes to the runes. Consider it done. The system consumed 500,000 badass points in a blink of an eye. Finally, Michael felt his power growing stronger. However, Michael did not feel relieved or happy as he should be. Instead, he was concerned. If a single cage could make him weak and vulnerable, that was a weakness he should address ASAP. Therefore, Michael decided to take the cage with him to the Dark Ocean so Eladir could study the cage and find a solution. Maybe he could even use this against Noah one day. Michael created a windshield around him to prevent the guards from hearing him talk. Gaia, Michael contacted Gaia. Michael, immediately, Michael heard Gaia's concerned voice. Where the fuck are you? I am worried sick. Tell me where you are. I am coming to get you. Are you in trouble? First, relax, said Michael. I'll explain when I get back. But now, I need you to do something for me. I am pretty sure you'd like it. What is it? I want you to Peter's home, kill any guardian there and use the teleportation scroll I just put in your space ring, so that bitch has something to do with your disappearance? Asked Gaia. He could feel the killing intent in Gaia's voice. Yeah, and this is payback. You want him alive or dead? Asked Gaia. Alive, said Michael. After Gaia left for Peter's home in Ice Fair, Michael willed the system to use the token for free specialization. The host can now choose one specialization among blacksmithing, rune mastery, engineering, and healing. There was no competition between the choices at all for Michael. He immediately chose blacksmithing. Make me a blacksmith, Messiahel said. He was excited like a kid. As soon as Michael chose the specialization, he felt a sharp pain in his brain. The system etched the knowledge needed to become a 5-star blacksmith in Michael's brain. New knowledge flashed across Michael's mind. He clenched his fist. He felt dizzy. The feeling of becoming a blacksmith was several times worse and more painful than becoming an alchemist. Michael started to notice the flaws in the weapons and armor of the guards around him. The pain lasted for almost 5 minutes. Even his vision blurred. Eventually, his vision slowly cleared. Michael took a few deep breaths. After almost 2 years, Michael finally became a 5-star blacksmith. Congratulations to the host on becoming a 5-star blacksmith, said the system. The host will need a special forge, tools, and materials to start forging weapons and armor. The host can buy a map with all the marked locations of required items for 700,000 badass points. Hold your horses, for now, system, said Michael. Until he could escape the fire realm, Michael did not want to spend any badass points. Who knew when he would need the points? A while later, Michael heard Gaia's voice. Hey, Michael. Are you there? Go on, I am at the Ice Fair, looking at the Belfort mansion. How do you want me to do this? Silent and clean or loud and messy? Asked Gaia. Silent and messy, said Michael. After you are done, burn the mansion to the ground, then it's a good thing I brought Nightmare with me, said Gaia. Chapter 773, End of Peter Belfort. Alicia banged the glass between her and Ghost. She poured energy into the rune on her hand to open the cage. However, the glass didn't even budge. Inside the cage, Peter squirmed in Michael's hand. Dante and his team waited for Mutrad's order. The only way to open the cage was through the rune on Alicia's hand. It was a failsafe to prevent someone from opening the cage to aid the Dark Lord. At that moment, this failsafe failed. Michael slowly grabbed Peter's right hand. No! Alicia shouted from outside. Arg! Peter screamed as Michael twisted his arm. The bones broke with a sickening cracking noise. Blood spurted out of Peter's hand. Some broken bone pieces were sticking out of his hand. Peter's scream echoed through the hall. Finally, Dante and his team realized why the entire world feared the Dark Lord. The illuminating orbs around the hall flickered. Slowly, everything grew darker. His long hair fluttered in the wind, giving him an eerie devilish look. Michael did not stop with breaking Peter's hand. He grabbed the broken shoulder and slowly applied pressure. Peter's body trembled in pain. Before you brought me here, I had no intention to hurt your brother, not at all, Michael said, looking at Alicia. In fact, I forgot about him. But you couldn't let it go. Norvin noticed Peter's muscles around his shoulder tearing apart. They could do nothing but watch the Dark Lord rip Peter's hand off his shoulder. Blood sprayed out of Peter's shoulder, painting the glass red. It was a sickening sight to see. Alicia banged the glass, hoping it would break the cage. "Ghost, stop," Norvin shouted. He tried to stop the Dark Lord using words even though everyone knew it wouldn't work. "We are beyond negotiation," Michael simply said. He grabbed Peter's other arm. Seeing this, Alicia roared like a wounded lion. "Break this cage," she shouted. However, Dante and his team felt reluctant to follow her order. The cage was designed to fall down once anyone tried to break the cage from the outside. Unfortunately, the only way to open the cage was through the rune on Alicia's arm. No one expected the Dark Lord to turn the tables on them. He made them powerless. "Your brother's death is on her head. Don't you agree with me, Norvin?" Michael asked Norvin. Norvin couldn't answer Michael. But to be honest, Norvin blamed Alicia for this. From the moment the Sky Hall elders approached Alicia behind Noah's back, Norvin advised her against taking this mission. Naturally, she didn't listen and jumped the gun when they told her they could capture the Dark Lord. The only reason why Norvin was with her was that she asked him to. Alicia had never asked him for anything in her life. Thus when she asked, he couldn't refuse her. Besides, he felt he could safeguard Alicia if he was with her. But Norvin never thought their plan would horribly go wrong. "At this point, you should know better than to mess with me," Michael's voice turned cold. He ripped off Peter's other arm and threw it at Alicia. Peter's face turned pale due to the heavy blood loss. Every inch of the cage was painted red with Peter's blood. His body slowly stopped squirming. "Peter!" Alicia screamed. Blood trickled down her nose in anger and pain. "I wonder what the Belafort family would think when they hear their precious Alicia Belafort just made an enemy out of the Dark Lord," said Michael. He slowly turned Peter's body upside down. He held him by his left leg. Michael intentionally did everything slowly. He wanted these moments to get carved into her brain. "I will kill you," Alicia roared. Her eyes turned blood red in anger. She screeched and punched the glass till her hands went numb. Yet no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't save her brother. She was just as helpless and weak as she was in the tournament. "If you think you can do that, you are stupider than I think." As soon as these words escaped Michael's mouth, he twisted Peter's leg and ripped it off his ankle. At this point, Peter didn't even move. He seemed dead to everyone. Seeing her brother's horrifying death, Alicia's legs turned to jelly. She collapsed to the ground. "Take it down," Mutrad said to Dante. He saw no option but to send the cage right into the volcano. He hoped it would stop the Dark Lord from killing them all. "As you wish," Dante did not argue with Mutrad. He conjured a ball of bright energy. The energy beam shot out of Danby's hand, hitting the chains attached to the ceiling. Upon the beam hitting the chains, they exploded into pieces. However, the cage did not fall down as they expected. Instead, the cage hovered in the air without even moving an inch. "Did you think it's that simple to get rid of me?" Michael devilishly grinned at Dante and Mutrad. Michael dropped Peter's body down and stepped onto his waist. He grabbed the last limb before turning his gaze back at Alicia. "I told you this would happen. You brought this on you all by yourself." Finally, Michael ripped off Peter's last limb. Michael heard the system's notification of Peter's death. Compared to the experience points he received from killing half-immortals and fusion stage cultivators, the amount he received from killing Peter was negligible at best. "Now, every single one of you is going to die. If I were you, I wouldn't put up a fight. It will only make your death more painful," said Michael. He glanced at Dante and his men. "Don't say I didn't warn you," Michael snickered. "Guys," Dante raised his voice. "Surround the cage and prepare for a fight," Dante ordered his men. Everyone, including Mila, was poised to attack the Dark Lord. They surrounded the Dark Lord. Ignoring Dante and his men, Michael grabbed Peter by his neck and lifted him. He walked toward Alicia. Norvin was speechless. After witnessing Peter's death, Norvin regretted accepting Alicia's request. He blamed himself for not talking Alicia out of this mission. At the very least, He knew he should have talked to Noah. He feared what Noah would say to all this after knowing what happened to Peter. Norvin doubted the Guardians and Belfort guards would still be alive. The Dark Lord liked to leave something behind for everyone to see and fear him. He ruled the world through fear. "Hey," Michael called Alicia. She couldn't look at the cage covered in her brother's blood. His words made her look up as Michael placed Peter's face against the glass. "Look at your brother's face," Michael said. Everyone around Michael trembled in fear. He ripped Peter limb by limb in front of his sister. Alicia saw her brother's face with widened eyes. They contained immense pain more than anger. His face was almost unrecognizable. Michael conjured the dark flames, slowly burning Peter's body. Even from outside, Dante and his men felt the temperature rising. The dark flames reduced Peter to a pile of hot ash. Dante and his men saw smoke fumes coming out of the ashes. Even now, they had no idea how the Dark Lord teleported Peter into the cage. An eerie silence enveloped the hall. Michael squatted down to see Alicia in her eyes. He waited for Alicia to look up. He wanted to see the pain and grief in her eyes. Usually, Michael preferred not to torture his enemies, but Alicia was different. She showed him no mercy. She took pleasure in torturing him. So why shouldn't he give a taste of her own medicine? "Whatever you give me, I will give it back 100 folds. Do you think Noah can save your ass every time, don't you? Well, think again, this is between you and us. Don't bring her family into this," Norvin snarled. They felt a chill when Michael burst into cold laughter. "You should have thought that before you decided to bring me here. As long as she is a Belfort, they will suffer untimely deaths," Michael threatened Alicia and Norvin. They waited for him to come out of the cage. Because there was no way for them to get inside. Suddenly, Michael's eyes turned pitch black. A black beam shot out of his each eye. The glass cracked. The number of cracks in the glass gradually increased. They knew it was only a matter of time before the glass shattered completely. "Get out of here," Dante stepped in front of Mutrad. He directed his words at Norvin, Alicia, and Mutrad. "No," Alicia shook her head. She rose up from the ground. "This ends here and now," Alicia's eyes glimmered with absolute resolve. She wanted to end the enmity between her and Ghost then and there. Because of her, Peter lost his life. The Dark Lord didn't even spare his body. She wouldn't be able to forgive herself if she couldn't avenge him or die trying. "Don't be stupid. Get her out of here," Dante growled. She was just a soul-refining stage warrior. The Dark Lord could kill her without batting an eye. Fighting him at her current level was nothing but suicide. After seeing what he did to Peter, Dante could only imagine what he would do to Alicia. As the strongest among them, it was Dante's duty to protect the weak. As much as Michael liked to kill Alicia, he chose not to. Not because he wanted to spare her but because he wanted her to suffer more. Killing her would be a mercy to her. Besides, as long as she was with Noah, she would bring new types of problems to him every day. While Noah was busy cleaning up Alicia's mess, Michael could focus on growing stronger. In other words, keeping Alicia alive was more beneficial to him in the long run than killing her. Norvin did not linger around any longer. He immediately took out a teleportation scroll from his space ring. He grabbed Alicia's shoulder and tore the scroll to activate the scroll. Soon, a bright light enveloped Alicia and Norvin. "Let me go." Alicia's voice echoed through the hall after she disappeared with Norvin. Dante and his men prepared themselves for a fight. Every light orb around them started to flicker more and more. Chapter 774. The Dark Lord's power. The light orbs continued to flicker until they all went out. Darkness enveloped the hall. Dante and his team heard the glass shatter. Dante flicked his wrist as a golden layer of light enveloped him. Everyone in the team cast a defense spell to protect themselves from the Dark Lord. Mila quickly conjured a ball of silver light. As they expected, the Dark Lord wasn't in the cage. They looked around. Suddenly, the door behind them shot closed with a loud thud. The team turned around as they saw the door was shut closed by someone. Mutrad felt a breeze of wind blowing past them. His body trembled in fear. Unlike Dante and his team, he witnessed what had transpired in Ithilien. As they searched for the Dark Lord, an invisible force snuffed out Mila's orb of light. The place fell to darkness once again. At that moment, the only light source was the shields around their bodies. But they weren't bright enough to see what was happening around them. The eerie silence swept across the hall. A peal of shout broke the silence. Arg! Dante and his team turned their heads in the voice's direction. They saw one of his team members wobbling around. Dante noticed a red line across his neck. Slowly, blood seeped through the line. To their surprise, the man's head fell from his shoulders. Blood sprayed out of his neck as his body hit the ground with a sickening thud. In a blink of an eye, the Dark Lord decapitated a half-immortal. Mila and the others slowly felt the growing fear in their hearts. The one who died was just as strong as them. Yet, he stood no chance against the Dark Lord, even with a shield around him. The Dark Lord completely ignored the shield and killed him. After killing the first half-immortal, the team began to conjure orbs of light. They wanted to bring light to fight the Dark Lord. One by one, they conjured energy orbs, lighting the place. But a powerful blast of wind snuffed out the light orbs. The Dark Lord did not allow them to fight the darkness. The darkness around them felt strange to Dante. It was not the usual darkness of the night but a thick and eerie kind of darkness. Before they could conjure another orb of light, another one groaned. Dante sent a bright beam of energy in a blink of an eye. He sensed the Dark Lord's movements around him. The energy beam soared through the air, lighting the place. At that moment, they saw a figure grinning at them from the shadows. It was the Dark Lord, without a doubt. Beside him, another one of Dante's team members squirmed. He was on fire. Contrary to typical red fire, these flames were pitch black. Dante and everyone felt the temperature in the room rising. Before Dante and his team could put out the fire, almost half of his body turned ashes. There was no point in trying to save him. The half-immortal held his chest. Because he was burning, they failed to notice the hole in his chest. Open fire. Dante ordered his team. He chose to attack the Dark Lord with spells instead of waiting for him to show himself. As soon as the team heard the order, they all cast their own spells. The entire hall lit up like a Christmas tree. Mutrad ducked down and kept his head down. Mila cast a spell that created a dazzling red panda. It ran around the hall, shaking the ground itself. The panda, made of energy, seemed like it was searching for someone. Boom! The panda exploded into bits and pieces. It happened so quickly. One moment the panda was running around, and the next, it shattered into countless specks of light. Mila immediately tried to cast another spell. However, a dark beam shot out from nowhere and hit her in the shoulder. Arg! Mila screamed. The dark beam sent her flying onto the walls behind her. The others did not stop. Dante clenched his fist, casting a spell. When he opened his fist, a shockwave of shadowy energy shot out from him. The shockwave was powerful enough to crush a fusion stage cultivator to a bloody pulp. He hoped the shockwave would knock down the Dark Lord. But nothing happened as Dante expected. A few seconds later, another wave shot out from the other side of the room. This wave was stronger and more powerful than Dante's shock wave. On top of it, it wasn't a shock wave but a wave of fire. Dante and his team immediately leaped into the air to avoid the dark flames. The flames pulsated from the Dark Lord. It scorched the marble floor, turning it black. Mutrad missed the flame wave by an inch. While they were in the air, the dark beams zigzagged through the air. The golden layer of light around Dante reflected the dark beams. Unfortunately, Mila's shield wasn't as strong as Dante's. The dark beams already hit her in the shoulder. She was bleeding. Her luck was bad enough to the point the dark beams hit the same spot in the shoulder. This time, the beams penetrated through her body. She fell from the air in pain. Dante dashed at Mila to catch her before she hit the ground. However, a black shield flew out of the darkness and hit him in the face. Dante momentarily lost his focus on Mila. The shield flew back in the same direction as it came. Mila! Dante screamed as he saw a bolt of golden lightning fly past her. Mila disappeared along with the lightning bolt. He could swear he saw the Dark Lord's blurry figure in the lightning bolt. Arg! Mila's screams echoed through the hall. But her scream was cut short. Hearing her scream, Dante's heart skipped a beat. He was with Mila for almost 500 years. The two of them joined the Arctic Hall together and have served them ever since. He forgot what it would feel like to live without Mila. Just imagining she might be dead made his body tremble. "Where are you?" Dante screamed. He could see in the dark as an immortal, but this strange darkness completely blinded him. Mila has yet to respond to him. Instead, Dante heard the Dark Lord's voice. "Didn't I warn you all?" asked Michael. His voice echoed through the hall. Dante conjured a ball of light. To his surprise, he saw Mila walking toward him. He heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Unfortunately, his relief was short-lived. He saw the large holes in her chest. Her silver armor had blood stains. He was about to reach out for Mila when the dark beams shot straight through Mila's head. "Mila!" Dante screamed. He dashed at Mila. He caught her dead body and collapsed down. Michael utilized Dante's grief. Without wasting a second, he immediately cast the lightning dash. Michael raised his hand as thick bolts of lightning shot out of his hand rapidly. He bombarded the half-immortals with lightning bolts. The half-immortals tried to shield themselves from the bolts. Their shields cracked upon taking hit by the lightning bolts. One by one, the shields shattered. As soon as the shield around them disappeared, the lightning bolts penetrated their bodies. The half-immortals looked weak as ants in front of Michael. Michael may be a half-immortal in cultivation, but he was several times stronger than one. He was a god, after all. Dante's team stood no chance against Michael, who was using the death range to boost his power. Dante heard the sounds of blood splashing around him. He looked around to see several heads flying in the air vaguely. After Michael slowly the last half-immortal, the hall went completely dark. At that moment, Mutrad only heard the sobbing of Dante. Mutrad saw what the Dark Lord was capable of up close. He couldn't believe he actually signed up to capture this cold-blooded killer. Up to this moment, Mutrad always thought the Ithalan massacre was made possible by the void effect he created deep down. Now he realized how wrong he was. The Dark Lord slaughtered a highly trained Arctic death squad in a few minutes. He toyed with them. Mutrad sensed his death near him. He searched for Dante. Mustering his courage, Mutrad conjured a tiny orb of light to light his path. His heart skipped a beat when the orb of light appeared in his hand. It almost jumped out of his chest. He saw the Dark Lord squatting beside Dante. Dante felt a chill. The fear toxin Michael released and the effects of the death range petrified Dante. Despite the cultivation difference between the two, Dante couldn't even lift a finger against Michael. Michael put his hand on Dante's shoulder. The very next moment, the Dark Lord sent the crimson-red sword in his hand straight through Dante's heart. He stabbed Dante again and again without giving Dante any time to retaliate. In addition, he shot dark beams from his eyes at Dante. The dark beams slowly melted through Dante's head. Michael lifted Dante by his neck after Dante completely lost the will and strength to fight. Mutrad saw the Dark Lord slowly walking toward the cage. As he moved closer to the cage, a bright light enveloped the cage out of nowhere. In a blink of an eye, the cage disappeared from Mutrad's sight. After the cage disappeared, the floor had a huge hole. One could see bubbling lava inside the volcano from the edge. Michael held Dante over the hole by his neck. Michael felt the scorching heat in the air. Just by standing above the volcano, his whole body sweated. Dante already lost consciousness after being stabbed and penetrated by the dark beams in his head. Although Michael killed his team and was about to kill Dante, he felt pity for them. They all died because of someone's agenda. To Michael, they were just experience packs. Michael stabbed Dante with his sword one last time before releasing his grip around his neck. Dante fell through the hole and flew straight toward the volcano. After wiping out Dante's team, Michael turned around. He saw Mutrad crawling back in fear. Mutrad shivered as the Dark Lord slowly walked toward him. Mutrad saw no way of escaping from the Dark Lord. "And what should I do with you?" Michael asked in a devilish tone. Chapter 775, Become My Spy. Michael snapped his finger as the lights turned back on. Michael gestured at Mutrad to get back to his feet. The air inside the hall reeked of blood. Everywhere Mutrad turned, he saw blood and bodies. An oblivious man wouldn't believe that they were once half immortals. Despite their cultivation level, they stood no chance against Michael. Mutrad shivered, looking Michael in the eyes. "Is this what you want for your people?" Michael asked Mutrad. "Because you've been shadowing me for a while. I can come and greet your people, and this cat and mouse run." Mutrad's heart skipped a beat hearing his words. "Give me one reason why I should visit your homeland." Michael gently placed his hand on Mutrad's shoulder. "I know you might think you have people stronger than immortals guarding your homeland. But you also knew stronger guards never stopped me from doing what I wanted." Mutrad shivered. Dante was an immortal, yet he didn't even put up a fight against the Dark Lord, who was at the half-immortal stage. If stronger cultivators could kill him, he would have been dead by now. The Dark Lord always had a way of killing enemies who were stronger than him in cultivation. After witnessing what happened in Ithalan, Mutrad couldn't even imagine the Dark Lord stepping into his homeland. "Please don't," Mutrad stuttered. "Why? Don't you want to arrest me?" asked Michael with an amused smile. "I think I want to visit your elders. I haven't tested my spells and power underwater." "This might be a great opportunity to do so," said Michael. "What do you want from me?" "I'd do anything to stop you." Mutrad managed to utter these words. "Is that so?" Michael rubbed his chin. "Answer me this, Mutrad. Are you more loyal to your people or the Guardians?" Mutrad did not understand the meaning of his question. Hence, he took some time to ponder. However, Michael was not a patient man. He squeezed Mutrad's shoulder, snapping him out of his daze. "To my people," Mutrad answered, getting his teeth. He felt like his shoulder bone was about to be crushed. Michael loosened his grip as Mutrad heaved a sigh. "Then you won't have a problem spying on the Guardians for me, will you?" Michael smiled. For a moment, Mutrad couldn't believe what he had just heard. The Dark Lord wanted him to be his spy. And that too inside the Guardian Guild. "But, I am not a Guardian," Mutrad said. "That didn't stop you from using and manipulating the Guardians until now," Michael said. He was nonchalant. Just like Mutrad did his research on Michael, he did the same on Mutrad. Last year, Michael assigned Azazel to learn more about the sea folks. One of the snippets of information Azazel had on Mutrad was how loyal Mutrad was toward the Arctic Hall and the sea folks. He would give his life for his people. In other words, Mutrad would do anything to protect his people. Michael always planned to use Mutrad one way or another. He was more valuable alive than dead. Moreover, Mutrad's close connection with the Guardian Guild allowed Michael to flip him against the Guardians. After all, Mutrad was loyal to his people, not to the Guardians. "Do I have any choice?" asked Mutrad. "Of course you have. You can either do what I ask you or watch the Black Day repeat all over again." Mutrad felt helpless. However, this was way better than having to witness his homeland burn as he watched Ithalan. If anything Mutrad learned over the past years, it was not to mess with the Dark Lord under any circumstances. After seeing the Dark Lord slaughter Dante and his team up close, Mutrad let go of his foolish pursuit to apprehend the Dark Lord. "It seems like I am going to be a rat," Mutrad sighed. "Better to be rat than dead," Michael snickered. After striking a deal with Mutrad, Michael looted the corpses for their space rings. Since they were all half immortals, he knew they might have some juicy items in their space rings. Michael scanned the castle with his environmental scanning. To his surprise, the castle seemed rather empty. He only sensed a bunch of soul refiners and a couple of fusion stage cultivations. Apparently, the Sky Hall and Sea folks put the strongest warriors to guard Michael. When Michael exited the castle, he had enough experience points to reach Immortal Stage Level 4. Michael now only needed to ensure the floating mountain was secure before triggering the Heavenly Tribulation again. Gaia was the only one who went through her Heavenly Tribulation in the Dark Ocean. Although she passed it successfully, the process was extremely dangerous. Michael wanted to change that. In fact, Michael must ensure all of his subordinates have a safer place to go through their heavenly tribulations safely. Instead of returning to the Dark Ocean, Michael chose to roam around the Fire Realm. According to Sadie, there might be a primordial flame within the Fire Realm. But to Michael's knowledge, there couldn't be another primordial flame in the Fire Realm. Because the Hell Flames were trapped within the Golden Plate, he took it from the Genric family. So Michael wondered how there could be another primordial flame. Since he was already at the Fire Realm, Michael wanted to look around a bit. With the system back online, he would find out if something was in the realm. 2 days later, Alicia returned to the ice fair with Norvin. The news of Peter's demise had already spread through the kingdom like wildfire. The entire kingdom knew the Dark Lord took Peter after slaughtering the Guardians and Belafort family soldiers who guarded Peter. Moreover, the rumor about the Dark Lord swearing to destroy the Belafort family spread among the people of the Ice Fair. The Belafort Manor was built on a river bank, overlooking a snowy mountain in the distance. The manor was extravagant enough to be called a castle. It was surrounded by thick walls and guarded by several soldiers armed to the teeth. They all bowed toward Alicia when her carriage entered the giant metal gates. Unlike ever before, Alicia felt reluctant to meet her family. She took a deep breath and exited the carriage. "Young miss," a couple of old women waited at the entrance to welcome Alicia. "Everyone is waiting for you in the main hall," said the old woman. Norvin noticed a sliver of concern and sadness in their eyes. As Norvin expected, the manor was crawling with guards. It made sense, especially after what happened to Peter. Norvin also knew the Dark Lord spread the news about the hostility between him and the Belafort family. He wanted the Belafort family to be isolated. Although no one would openly admit they were afraid of the Dark Lord, they would automatically cut ties with the Belafort so they wouldn't end up on the Dark Lord's radar. Norvin hoped Noah would come out of his seclusion soon to sort everything out with Alicia and her family. If anyone could clean up Alicia's mess, it was Noah. Alicia and Norvin followed the two old women inside. "Young miss," when they reached a marble door, the two old women gawked at Norvin. "He is coming with me," Alicia coldly said. She knew they were trying to tell her to leave Norvin outside since he wasn't a Belafort. However, as far as Alicia was concerned, Norvin was her family. Hence, she outright refused to leave Norvin behind. When Alicia opened the marble door, she was welcomed by a spacious grand hall. Slender braziers enclosing each of the 16 onyx columns lit up the lower levels of the throne hall, covering the hall in dancing shadows and a warm radiance. The marble stone of the layered ceiling danced in the flickering light while memorials looked down upon the stone floor of this luxurious hall. A gray-haired man wearing icy blue robes sat on a throne atop an elevated platform. The regal marble throne sat beneath a statue of an eagle and was adjoined by 5 rather plain-looking seats for the family members. The elders and important family members sat on several extravagant and comfortable iron benches, all of which faced the throne in a half-circle. Those of higher standing were seated on the embellished mezzanines facing the throne. The moment Alicia entered the hall, the noises fell flat. Silence occupied the hall completely. The man on the throne was none other than Alicia's father, Francis Belafort. He was a fit man with a stubble white beard. At that moment, his blue eyes had hidden anger and concern for his family's safety. Even though he lost his son, he had no time to grieve when his family was in mortal danger. Francis may have soon-to-be son-in-law who was the supreme guardian, but he and the elders doubted Noah could protect them from the Dark Lord forever. Taking a life was so much easier than protecting one. Alicia's eyes watered, seeing the cold look on her father's face. Looking at their eyes, Norvin could tell all of them were scared shitless by the Dark Lord. Their fear was the Dark Lord's strength. He ruled the world through fear. At that moment, the Belafort family was under his thumb. There was a time the Belafort family could have crushed Ghost without much effort. But time had changed everything. Now, even the most powerful families would tremble at the mere mention of the Dark Lord's name. Alicia Flora Belafort, Francis addressed Alicia by her full name. His voice was cold. Norvin, please take a seat among the elders. This hearing is only for Alicia, said Francis. If you don't mind, I'd like to stand beside my friend, Lord Francis. As her friend and sworn brother, it's my duty, and I hope you won't ask me to fail my duty. Fair enough, Francis nodded. Before we start this hearing, I'd like to know everything you know about Peter. Is he dead? Everything Francis saw in Peter's home suggested the obvious. Yet, Francis wanted to hear it from Alicia. Alicia slowly nodded as tears rolled out her eyes. Francis clenched his fist. It took him several moments to find his next words. Is it possible for us to give him a proper burial? Asked Francis. Alicia's silence spoke volumes. It was hard for them to digest that Peter, the heir to the Belafort family, died a brutal death. It's time for you to tell us everything you know, Alicia, Francis asked Alicia. Alicia remained silent. I am not asking you as your father. I am ordering you to speak as the head of the Belafort family. Francis' voice became colder. Finally, Alicia wiped off the tears from her face and decided to tell her father everything related to Peter's death. She didn't care about what would happen to her. They deserved to know the truth. Chapter 776. Unexpected turn of events. Alicia told the Belafort family everything related to Peter's death, including the fact that she worked with the Sky Hall to capture the Dark Lord. She didn't leave the part where she actually tortured the Dark Lord himself. The elders shivered in fear. Some outright dropped to their knees, praying to the gods to save the family. Many elders were furious at Alicia for endangering the family. For a few minutes, the elders murmured and gasped in shock. Silence. Francis raised his voice as the noise finally fell flat. How many times have we told you to leave Peter's matter alone? Francis asked Alicia. His eyes glimmered with anger. Because Alicia was a prodigy and his doting daughter, he always ignored her obvious anger issues. Even when she tried to gather the Belafort family to seek revenge against Ghost after the tournament, Francis only gently talked her out of it. He had never shown any anger toward Alicia. What happened to Peter in the tournament was unfortunate. But he wasn't blameless, either. You need to be ready to get burned if you play with the fire long enough, one of the gray-haired elders rose from his seat and said. Alicia clenched her fist. Unfortunate? Is that what you call what happened to Peter? Alicia's voice burned with rage and murderous intent. The elder almost took a step back. He is right. Alicia's anger disappeared immediately when she heard Francis. Instead, she was stunned by her father's words. She couldn't understand how Francis could accept what Ghost did to Peter at the tournament like others. Am I the only one who thinks Peter doesn't deserve Ghost's cruel treatment? Alicia said, gritting her teeth. But he was alive, wasn't he? Francis coldly asked Alicia. If you had left that matter alone, he would have been alive by now. The Dark Lord may have killed him, but you are just as responsible as the Dark Lord himself. Alicia couldn't believe she heard these words from her father. Even Norvin had never expected such cold treatment from Francis. Looking at Francis' treatment of Alicia, the elders dared to speak their minds. Soon, an old lady with neatly combed white hair stood up. Does Noah Winston know you went behind his back? Asked the old woman. He has nothing to do with this, Norvin said. I disagree. He has everything to do with this. He might be the only person who could protect our family from the Dark Lord. Is it true that the Dark Lord said, quote, as long as she is a Belafort, they will suffer untimely deaths? Norvin was startled. The old lady spoke the Dark Lord's words like she was there. How did you know? Alicia coldly asked the woman. So it's true, the old woman collapsed as the elders gasped in shock. It was none other than Michael who spread the rumors in Ice Fair through Sadie. He wanted some of the important elders in the Belafort family to know what had happened even before Alicia told them. Still, the elders were startled to hear it from Alicia's mouth. The elders couldn't even think straight after realizing they were officially on the kill list of the Dark Lord. You can't blame her for everything. She was Peter's sister, for God's sake. If you stay still and do nothing, if the same had happened to your son, daughter, or brother, Norvin questioned the elders. Another elder stood up. I don't know what we would have done after the tournament. But we would have definitely avoided messing with Ghost after knowing he is the freaking Dark Lord. He slaughtered immortals and literally removed Ithilon from the face of the world, and where was the Sky Hall when he killed Peter? The Great Eight clans need pawns to sacrifice to the Dark Lord. They won't let their own get killed, another elder voiced his concern. Because of what you had done, we might get wiped off. He slaughtered immortals. Do you think we stand a chance against him? He didn't have to come here by himself. Any one of his generals could burn us to the ground. One by one, the elders stood up and raised their voices. Francis could do nothing but watch his daughter get blamed for everything. The unfortunate thing was the elders were right. Alicia had no words to defend herself. Deep down, she knew her entire family was in danger because of what she did. At that moment, Norvin hated the Sky Hall more than anyone. They roped Alicia into this plan and never appeared to save Peter. He could only imagine what would have happened to Mutrad and his men. I will accept any punishment you give me, Alicia dropped to her knees. The hall went silent. Norvin saw Francis rise from his throne. He hoped Alicia's mother was here. Unfortunately, the poor woman was too devastated to hear her son was dead. She lost consciousness the moment she saw the blood stains and the dead bodies in Peter's home. She was still under the care of healers. Alicia, I don't blame you completely. You did what any loving sister would have. I know you wanted to avenge Peter. But at that same time, you ignored our warnings. You went behind our backs and endangered the entire family. You let your anger cloud your mind, Francis sighed. He couldn't speak those words looking into Alicia's eyes. But he had to do this for the sake of his family. He hoped it would be enough to calm the Dark Lord's anger. As someone who lost a brother, I understand your feelings. Taking that and your contributions to the family into the account, I hereby exile you from the Belafort family. Tears gushed out of Alicia's eyes. Norvin was startled by Francis' words. But the elders looked relieved and satisfied with Francis' punishment. None of the elders expected a death sentence for Alicia, so they were quite satisfied with removing Alicia from the family. From now on, you are not a Belafort, and I restrict you from using the name under any circumstances. A teardrop escaped Francis' eye. His voice stuttered. With Alicia's exile, his bloodline came to an end. Let's just hope this will be enough for the Dark Lord, said an elder. Norvin clenched his fist. He wanted to punch everyone to death. However, he managed to suppress his anger. The last thing Norvin wanted was to make things worse for Alicia. Suddenly, a bright beam of light shot through the ceiling and landed right beside Alicia. The bright light blinded everyone. They closed their eyes using their hands. After the light beam faded away, they saw Noah Winston standing beside Alicia. Noah! Norvin shouted. He had never been so happy to see Noah. Just Noah's arrival made Norvin heave a sigh of relief. Noah did not utter any word but lifted Alicia to her feet by her shoulders. He wiped off the tears on her face and gently smiled. Let me take care of this, said Noah. He turned his gaze away from Alicia to Francis. Is this what the great Belafort family has reduced to? You'd rather exile your daughter than seek justice for your son's death? Noah was calm, but his words were as cold as ice. If Noah was just a guardian, Francis and the elders would have raised their voices against him. But he was a supreme guardian, the leader of the Guardian Guild. Hence, they dared not to disrespect Noah. I lost my son. I am not going to lose my family too, said Francis. Nothing you say will revoke my judgment. She is not a Belafort anymore. Francis said these words with a heavy heart. He had to look stout in front of the elders. He couldn't afford to look weak. But only he knew how painful it was to make this decision. He felt like something was squeezing his heart. She won't be a Belafort anymore. Noah turned as he lifted Alicia's hand. Because she is a Winston, under their gazes, Noah put a ring on her finger. It wasn't an engagement ring but the Winston family heirloom. The white ring symbolized the marriage union between them. No one expected Noah to marry Alicia then and there. Even Michael did not expect Noah's bold move. He thought Noah would be furious and vent his anger on Alicia, which would break their relationship. Instead, it brought Noah and Alicia closer. Even Alicia and Norvin were stunned. Alicia just stared at Noah without batting an eye. If Ghost wants to hurt her, he'd have to go through me. Noah grabbed Alicia's hand and walked toward the door. On his way, he raised his finger as a light beam shot toward the ceiling. Francis saw a tiny object fall down from the ceiling. It soon exploded into oblivion. Everyone realized that the Dark Lord was watching them all this time. Just the thought was enough to make their hearts skip a beat. Noah crushed the spider under his feet and exited the hall without turning back. The elders were still in shock. Francis' mind was blank. He just saw his daughter getting married before his eyes. Everything happened so sudden. He dreamed of doing Alicia's marriage as the grandest event in Ice Fair history, but the gods had another plan. Meanwhile, Michael was looking at a blank mirror. Michael was surprised to see Noah actually located his spider. It seemed to him Noah's godly powers were slowly developing. Of course, Noah was nowhere close to Michael in terms of power or god level. That was unexpected, said Michael. I don't get him. He did the exact opposite of what we imagined, said Iag. Life is full of surprises, huh? Michael smiled. Granted, what Noah did surprised him, but it didn't mess up Michael's plan whatsoever. The longer Alicia was with Noah, the more problems he would face. However, Michael admired Noah for sticking by his woman's side even when she was in the wrong. At least the two of them shared that in common. My lord, Azazel entered the room. Lord Elidar is waiting for you outside, said Azazel. Everything ready? Michael asked. Everything is ready, my lord. Michael took a deep breath. Since he got the Elven rune, it was time to reach the 6-star alchemist level. Chapter 777, Pray to the Dark Lord. After Michael revealed himself as the Dark Lord, the Sunrise sect faced several slanders from the nobles and the Guardian Guild. The rival sects used this as an excuse to isolate the sect and cause its downfall. After Noah took the throne of the Supreme Guardian, he launched an extensive investigation on the Sunrise sect and learned the Dark Lord had no more connections with the sect. As an individual, Noah knew Ghost genuinely helped the sect to grow. Just because he was the Dark Lord, Noah couldn't disregard all the good Ghost did to the Sunrise sect and the river town. Under the Sunrise sect's leadership, the river town became one of the richest cities in the Elon continent. The town may be small, but that didn't stop them from prospering. After Noah's investigation redeemed the Sunrise sect, disciples resumed joining the sect. The Sunrise sect had the highest breaking through rate compared to the rest of the sections. Thanks to the biggest herbal garden on the continent and the talented alchemists in the sect, they refined powerful potions and pills. They continued the tradition of giving out pills and potions for free to the disciples even after Michael left the sect. Since the Dark Lord himself was a former disciple, no one even dared to think about harming anyone in the sect. To the outside world, the Sunrise sect had no connection with the Dark Lord. But in reality, someone in the sect still was in touch with the Dark Lord. It was none other than Elder Ella. Under her takeover spree, the Sunrise sect had taken over more than 30 sects and became the largest sect in the continent. Recently, Ella had been trying to broaden her horizon to the Azer continent. The sky above the peaceful sect was littered with stars. Nighttime brought beauty like no other time of day. The only sound that resonated in the mountains was the wind whistling through trees, with the occasional cricket chirping here and there. In the daytime, the sect grounds bustled with disciples and staff. The nighttime, however, the exact opposite of the daytime. The disciples were inside their rooms, cultivating and meditating, while the outsiders were prohibited from entering the sect ground without the elders' permission. The sect became so peaceful that it was difficult not to relax completely while looking at this particular nighttime beauty. The sky was covered with blackness and speckled with millions of stars. The blue moon dazzles in the sky, bathing the jade mountain with its sparkling blue light. Under this starry sky, a figure walked atop a lone mountain where the Dark Lord used to meditate. One could see the entire sect and the river town from this mountain peak. This mountain was restricted to the disciples as the guardian believed the aura of the Dark Lord could still be around and influence the disciples. But it was all a horde of bullshit. Nonetheless, only the elders and sect leader Claire were allowed to access this particular mountain. "I need your help," the figure said gently. Her silky smooth skin almost reflected the dazzling moonlight. The wind blew past her, making her striking golden hair flutter in the air. Claire sat on the mat the Dark Lord used to meditate. To her, the Dark Lord was like her little brother. No matter what the world said about him, she knew better than to trust the world. Looking at the world from here, tears rolled out her eyes without control. She felt a strange sense of security in this place. "You know, my grandfather had gone missing," Claire said to the sky, hoping it would reach the Dark Lord somehow. It had been 3 weeks since Christopher went missing. Before Ghost revealed himself as the Dark Lord to the world, he broke Christopher's curse. Claire had never been happier in her life. She saw her grandfather finally able to sleep without groaning in pain. Although one of their disciples turned out to be the Dark Lord, everything went relatively fine for Claire and the sect. However, that was only until Christopher began discussing rescuing Claire's mother, Elisha Mortero. She was held prisoner by the Mortero family for almost 3 decades. The Mortero family was based in the kingdom of Nelnather. It was one of the 3 elven kingdoms in the Aur continent. Unlike the other 2, Nelnather was extremely hostile against the other races. Of course, they put on a facade of being friendly and welcoming, but deep down, most of the elves would kill the other races in a heartbeat. Most of the racist elves Michael met in Mazeroth hailed from Nelnather. Hence, they went to such an extent to hunt down Elisha and her human husband. Luckily for Claire, she inherited human features rather than 11 features. Otherwise, she would have ended up in a different prison. "I searched everywhere. But who am I kidding? I know where he went. I am just too weak to go there. I am afraid, Ghost," Claire sobbed. Everyone advised her to go to the Guardian Guild. But Claire knew they wouldn't lift a finger to help Claire. Everyone in the Guardian Guild hated the Sunrise sect and Claire because of the Dark Lord. Even after Noah proved the sect had nothing to do with the Dark Lord anymore, he couldn't wipe out the hatred in the Guardians' minds. She was nowhere close to fighting the elves. Due to the immense workload and the thought of her mother, Claire's cultivation slowed down. She was stuck at the soul refining stage level 10 for almost a year. She had too many things in her mind that created a bottleneck in her cultivation. Because she was the sect leader, she couldn't afford to look weak and vulnerable. Yet deep down, she was afraid like a little girl. She had already lost her grandfather once. She didn't think she could lose him again. Every time she felt helpless, Ghost was always there for her. She hoped he would appear before her one more time. She closed her eyes, praying to the Dark Lord. Worshipping the Dark Lord was a crime punishable by death in some kingdoms. The Guardian Guild came up with this punishment, only to get demolished by Noah. Instead of killing the worshippers, Noah captured them and asked why they were praying to the Dark Lord. Of course, Andreas outright disagreed with Noah and advised him to kill the worshippers before they could join the Dark Lord's army. Unfortunately, both Noah and Andreas were right. Some of them did join the Dark Lord's army, but many who Noah captured let go of Dark Lord worshipping and returned to their normal life with a little help from the guild. Unknowing to the Guardian Guild, the Dark Lord had his underlings among the people. Whenever someone prayed for the Dark Lord, their prayers would be answered in exchange for loyalty. "Please answer my prayers. They say you are a god. A god should answer prayers. You always answered my prayers. Please, do it one more time. Claire collapsed her hands together and prayed for the Dark Lord. A gentle breeze of wind blew past Claire. She heard the dried leaves rustling around her. Still, she did not open her eyes. She completely focused on her prayer. Tears slowly rolled out of her eyes. For a few minutes, the only companion she had was silence. After a while, she lost track of time. When she was drowned in prayer, another gentle breeze blew past her. To her surprise, the breeze of wind blew against her face as though it was trying to pry open her eyes. Claire's neck hair stood up when she heard a voice from behind. For a moment, Claire thought her mind was playing games. Did you call for me? Claire clearly heard the voice, it was undoubtedly Ghost's. She abruptly opened her eyes. When she turned around, she saw Ghost standing before her. It felt like a dream to her. She sobbed and smiled at the same time. Without a second thought, she ran toward Ghost and hugged him tightly. She didn't give a damn about what everyone said about him or what anyone would think if they saw them together. No words escaped her mouth. Her mind was completely blank. The wall she erupted around her to show the world how strong she was crumbled down before Michael. In front of him, she was just a weak girl in need of help. What did I tell you before I left? I'd always answer your calls, said Michael. He gently brushed her back while she was sobbing. Yes, Claire said. It took Claire a few minutes to finally let him go. He wiped off the tears from her face and gently smiled. Don't cry. I am here. You have nothing to worry about. Michael took her hands, leading her to the mountain edge. He sat on the edge and gestured at her to sit beside him. What happened? Michael asked Claire as though he didn't know what made her pray for him. As a matter of fact, Sadie was tasked to get as much information as possible about the Maltero family. Even though Michael's spy network was still in the beginning stages, he could almost learn anything through the Silvermoon girls. Sadie already sent an elf to Nelnither. Michael wanted to know everything he could before rescuing Claire's mother. He may be the Dark Lord, but he cared for everyone around him. Since the elves of Nelnither were a bunch of racist scums, giving them the Dark Lord treatment was just a bonus. Claire told Michael everything about her grandfather's disappearance. He patiently listened to Claire's story and felt pity for her. The elves really messed up her life. After Claire finished her story, Michael squeezed her hand. If your mother is still alive, I will bring her to you, said Michael. She had to be, Claire's voice stuttered. Michael did not want to make any false promises. There was a certain possibility that Claire's mother was dead. Even he wouldn't be able to bring the dead back to life. However, if she was alive, nothing could stop him from rescuing her and reuniting her with Claire. Chapter 778, Six-Star Alchemist. After leaving the Sunrise sect, Michael returned to the Dark Ocean. He spent almost 2 hours with Claire. At first, they just talked about Alasha and the Mortero family. Then, their topic turned toward the sect, personal life, and even marriage. To Michael's surprise, Claire asked him to come to the Dark Ocean, leaving everything behind. However, Michael refused the idea. Instead, Michael wanted her to stay in Elon and continue to lead the Sunrise sect to prosperity. The Sunrise sect and the river town were something he was so proud of. When the war with the 8 great clans and the Eskai Hall was over, he even planned to settle down in the river town. Hence, he wanted Claire to keep ruling till it's over. He appeared right on top of the waterfall, where he met Elidor. My lord, Elidor slightly bent his back to show respect. The ground around Elidor glimmered in the darkness. Before the Dark Lord arrived, Elidor created this array to let the Dark Lord absorb the Elven rune. Because it was just a simple array, Elidor created it in a few minutes. When the Dark Lord appeared, he stood in the array's center. Please come to the center, my lord. Elidor gestured at Michael to step into the array. Upon reaching the center, Michael noticed the runes in the array glow brighter. He felt a strange sensation throughout his body. He took out the golden plate with the elven rune engraved in it. The array flickered as soon as the elven rune appeared in Michael's hand. The elven rune responded to the array by radiating a crimson-red light. The two lights glowed brighter and brighter as the golden plate trembled in Michael's hand. "Focus on the rune and try to absorb it, my lord," Elidor instructed Michael. He did as he was told. First, Michael closed his eyes. He tried to feel the energy radiating from the rune. While focusing on the rune, he started to feel a strange connection with the rune. Warm energy washed over him. Elidor saw the red rune slowly floating toward the Dark Lord. Inch by inch, it moved closer to the Dark Lord's forehead. The rune disappeared into the Dark Lord's head a few seconds later. Michael felt a bolt of electricity running down his spine. The host has absorbed the elven rune. Fire mastery has increased by 10%. Current fire mastery is 40%. The host has fulfilled the requirements needed to become a 6-star alchemist. Does the host wish to upgrade to the 6-star alchemist level? Michael saw his vision being filled with system notifications. Finally, after such a long time, he was able to reach the 6-star alchemist level. Yes, Michael willed the system to upgrade his alchemy skill. As usual, he felt an acute pain in his brain. Fortunately, the pain only lasted for several seconds. Congratulations to the host for becoming the 6-star alchemist. The host can now refine pills and potions with 100% purity, said the system. The array around Michael slowly lost its glow. Michael raised his hand, conjuring his alchemy flames. Unlike before, purplish flames appeared above Michael's palm instead of emerald green flames. This flame burned hotter and brighter. Granted, it was nowhere close to the dark flames, but still, it was several times hotter and more powerful than the emerald green flames. "Now you are a 6-star alchemist, my lord," said Elidor. He couldn't help admiring the Dark Lord's talents. But Elidor never felt any jealousy. He knew there was a struggle and hard work behind everything the Dark Lord had. He spent a year pretending to be Elmer in the Genric family to get the elven rune. Many with his power and resources wouldn't go through such a struggle. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out several ingredients from the system store. Now that he had reached the 6-star alchemist level, Michael decided to brew a potion that had been in his mind for so long. Under Elidor's curious gaze, Michael tossed the ingredients into the purple flame. To brew the potion with 100% purity, Michael either needed a legendary cauldron or a 100% fire master. Since he had neither, he could only hope for 97% pure pills and potions. As far as Michael was concerned, buying a cauldron from the system was a waste of badass points. Instead, he opted to buy it locally. Gold coins were much cheaper and easier to get than the badass points. One by one, ingredients melted into globs of colorful essence. These beads of essence slowly merged, forming a murky brown glob. Soon, the purple flames faded away as the brown liquid flew into a glass vial. "What is it, my lord?" asked Elidor. The potion sparked in Michael's hands. Even standing a few meters away from the potions, Elodie was able to feel the energy radiation from the potion. His curiosity made him ask the Dark Lord without wasting a second. "You will see soon," said Michael without breaking the surprise. An hour later, Michael finally returned to his room. Nightmare and Vidora were nowhere to be found in his room. The two of them went flying around the mountain to pass the time. Cain did not like wasting his time flying around, but Sarba and Iag outvoted him. Since they weren't in the room, Michael hoped to have some alone time with Gaia. "Where is my gorgeous fiancée?" Michael entered the room with a grin on his face. But his smile froze when he saw Gaia sitting on their bed with hundreds of scrolls around her. Her hair was messy, and she was still in her black pajamas. She didn't even notice Michael entering the room. She just scratched the back of her head with the quill. "Okay, what is happening here?" asked Michael. He removed his armor and put it on the armor stand. He willed the system to equip the sweatpants and a black tank top. He slowly moved aside the scrolls and sat behind her. With full of love, he hugged her from behind and placed his head on her shoulder. "What's bothering you?" asked Michael. The financial state of our order. We are in trouble, Michael, Gaia said with a grave voice. We need to generate more income instead of solely relying on Giselle. The more we take from Giselle, the more attraction we draw from the world, Gaia sighed. Judging by the look in her eyes, Michael realized they were really in neck-deep trouble. To be honest, Michael had never meddled with the financial side of things. He let Gaia handle it because she had more experience managing than him. We are running out of pirates to pillage. They are joining our ranks instead of fighting. So every day, the number of mouths we have to feed and pay for increases. At this rate, we'd be bankrupt in few months. That bad, huh? Gaia nodded. Let's just hope Saber and his party return from the treacherous ocean with some treasures. It won't solve anything but temporarily fix our situation till Suddenly Gaia shouted. The fuck? Gaia furiously turned around. What part of our conversation made you think, oh, I should pinch her waist? The part where you being so pretty and cute. Michael kissed her on the cheek, pulling her down to the bed. He cuddled her so tight. You are so annoying, Gaia giggled. Regardless of her tension and pressure, he made her smile. She got on top of Michael as he hugged her tight. The two of them could feel each other's fragrance and hot warmth. Guess who is the 6-star alchemist in the dark ocean? Asked Michael with a sly grin. Really? When did that happen? Why didn't you tell me? Gaia asked as Michael chuckled. I did. You just forgot. Shit, Gaia smacked herself on the head. I am sorry. Gaia rubbed her nose with Michael before kissing him on the forehead. I should be the one to say sorry. I shouldn't have put all the financial side of things on your head. After we return from Nelnithor, I'll find a way to generate more income. Nelnithor? Isn't that the Elven kingdom filled with racist assholes? Yes, Michael chuckled. Why do we need to go there? Asked Gaia. Michael heaved a sigh as he began to tell her everything that Claire had told him. After listening to Michael, Gaia felt pity for Claire. I almost forgot Christopher and Elisha. We did give them our word would help Claire reunite with her family. When are we leaving? Since Gaia lost her mother when she was little, she knew how Claire felt. It made Gaia sympathize with her. Besides, Claire was her friend. Hence, they decided to help her. After I break through to the immortal stage, the moment she heard Michael's words, her brows arched up. She couldn't believe him. What the fuck? You just became a half-immortal. Gaia wanted to punch him in the face. Noah was his rival, yet he was still stuck at the fusion stage. Meanwhile, Michael accumulated enough experience points to jump from half-immortal level 10 to immortal stage level 4. Gaia could only imagine how powerful he would become after reaching the immortal stage. It was really difficult not to feel jealous of his cultivation speed. What can I say? I am a god, Michael shrugged. How long will be your heavenly tribulation this time? Gaia asked. 10 days, said Michael. According to the system, his heavenly tribulation would last 10 days, and it recommended Michael find a safe place or make the dark ocean safe. Fortunately, Elidari was working on creating a new array to prevent the lightning storm around the dark ocean from intervening in his heavenly tribulations. Michael had no interest in finding a new place. The dark ocean was the only place the Guardians wouldn't dare to come to. Even if they tried, the lightning storm and the weather would take care of them. Michael wasn't the same man he was a year before. He had a powerful army. Every day, they grew in number and power. The only problem was the current financial state. Although Michael vaguely had an idea for a new source of income, he lacked the necessary things. Is it safe to trigger the tribulation here? Last time I almost died. Heavenly tribulation and the lightning storm do not make a good pair. Elidari will take care of it, said Michael. Chapter 779. The Dark Lord has triggered a tribulation again. A few days after Mutrad survived the slaughter and struck a deal with the Dark Lord, he was summoned by the Supreme Guardian. This was the first time Mutrad had stepped into the Winston Manor. The guards patrolling the premise looked proud and walked with their chests puffed up. Since Norvin accompanied Mutrad, the guards did not stop him. Mutrad descended to the ground. Noah is waiting in the garden. This way, Norvin gestured at Mutrad to follow him. Mutrad's heartbeat slowly rose. He was the Dark Lord's spy. So naturally, he felt an uneasiness in Noah's house. He hated being stuck between two gods. At least Noah was not as brutal and ruthless as the Dark Lord. Mutrad could still remember when Andreas revealed himself and told the entire world that Noah was the god of light. At that moment, Noah became the poster child for the fight against the Dark Lord. But the fear of the Dark Lord spread throughout the world like wildfire. The fear undermined Noah's rule and power. Moreover, Noah's feats were nowhere close to what the Dark Lord did. Mutrad slowly followed behind Norvin to the garden. They walked around the manor instead of through it. As he stepped into an elegant garden with a pond in the center, he noticed Noah's mother sitting on a bench and feeding the birds. "Mother," Norvin smiled when she turned her gaze toward them. "You are late," said Diana. "Sorry," Norvin scratched the back of his head. She looked at Mutrad. "Who is this?" "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Diana." "I am Mutrad," Mutrad slowly bowed. For a moment, Norvin could swear he saw a glimmer of anger within Diana's eyes. But soon, the anger faded away as she smiled. "You must be the representative of House Halrid." "Yes," Mutrad nodded. He felt something strange about this woman. She looked gentle, yet something about her bothered him. He shoved his doubts aside. After meeting the Dark Lord, he doubted everyone. "Wait here. I'll go send Noah." Diana quickly left the garden. Since Mutrad was tasked to apprehend the Dark Lord, he made it into Harriet's hit list. Mutrad was still alive because she did not want more heat to fall on Michael. If she killed Mutrad, the sea folks would retaliate by sending their army to fight Michael. The last thing Diana wanted was more trouble for her son. After Diana left, Mutrad sat on the bench with Norvin. "You all right?" asked Norvin. Mutrad was not a very talkative person. But he was unusually silent ever since he returned from the Fire Realm. Granted, he met the Dark Lord face to face and lived to tell the tales, yet Norvin couldn't help feeling amiss. "Why wouldn't I be? You look worried. Is something bothering you?" Mutrad rolled his eyes. He hated Norvin's concern. Unlike him, Norvin and Alicia escaped the Dark Lord using a teleportation scroll. They weren't there to see how the Dark Lord brutally slaughtered his men. "Of course, something's bothering me. I just survived the Dark Lord. I was this close to dying," said Mutrad. "About that, why didn't you use the teleportation scroll? You got one right?" "I wasn't lucky. After you teleported, the Dark Lord locked the space around us." "I tried and failed," said Mutrad. It was a lie. He was petrified and failed to use the teleportation scroll. Ever since that day, Mutrad couldn't close his eyes. Because every time he did, he saw vividly how the Dark Lord slaughtered the men. To be honest, Mutrad wanted to return to his homeworld, leaving all this behind him. However, his elders ordered him not to. Hence, he had no choice but to remain in the land and spy for the Dark Lord. Otherwise, his homeland would become the next Ithilien. "You are lucky." Suddenly, Mutrad heard Noah's voice. He turned around to see Noah walking toward them. To Mutrad's surprise, Alicia was standing beside Diana at the doorway. After what had happened in the Fire Realm, Mutrad thought Noah would kick out Alicia. Imagine his surprise when he heard Noah actually married her. Mutrad failed to figure out what Noah was thinking. Even Alicia's family exiled her from the family. One thing was sure, the Winstons were either stupid or prepared to face the Dark Lord's wrath. If Mutrad had to bet on someone between Noah and the Dark Lord, he would choose the Dark Lord without a second thought. However, Mutrad dared not to underestimate Noah. According to Mutrad's men, Noah often went on secret adventures, leaving his post. It meant one thing: he was looking for something. Mutrad knew it must be something worth sacrificing his cultivation. Noah could have reached the fusion stage by now, yet he chose not to. Everyone in the guild wondered why. If he was going to face the Dark Lord, Noah had a long way to go. When Noah appeared, Noravan transformed himself into his natural form and climbed onto Noah's shoulder. Noah sat beside Mutrad with a smile. "You are here and not under 6 feet. It means you are lucky, Mutrad," said Noah. "I don't feel lucky," said Mutrad. "There must be a reason why Ghost left you alive." Noah had doubts about why Ghost chose to leave Mutrad alive instead of killing him. Knowing how Ghost loved to make connections, Noah suspected Mutrad of being his spy. Lately, he and his teacher had more disagreements. But on Mutrad's matter, they both agreed that the Dark Lord might have turned Mutrad. There was no other plausible way to explain why Ghost spared Mutrad. "Where are you getting at, Noah?" Mutrad creased his brows. "Nowhere. Just needed to get your side of things before closing the file on the Fire Realm incident," said Noah. Mutrad was surprised and almost couldn't believe Noah. He expected Noah to investigate the matter further. Contrary to his expectation, Noah said he was about to close the file. "Don't be surprised," as though Noah had read Mutrad's mind, he asked him not to be surprised. "It was not my operation or guild's. It's a mess the Arctic Hall and Sky Hall need to clean. If it wasn't for Alicia's involvement, I wouldn't have bothered about all this," Noah sighed. "I just need to know what happened after Alicia and Norvan left the hall. I heard Ghost teleported the cage before killing everyone." Mutrad nodded. "Did the Sky Hall meet Alicia afterward?" Mutrad asked Noah. Unfortunately, no. Even Noah was surprised that no one from the Sky Hall bothered to meet Alicia after what happened in the Fire Realm. According to Andreas, the Sky Hall may have lost its ways. But Noah couldn't understand what's more important than the Dark Lord. The longer they let the Dark Lord free, the stronger he would become. Any Alpha Guardian could have killed Ghost a year ago without breaking a sweat. But now, they were afraid of him. Almost everyone in the guild feared the Dark Lord. Noah wasn't surprised by their fear. He had done nothing to reassure them. Sadly, they would have to fear him long until he finds all the god-killing arrows. Until now, he managed to get 2 arrows. The Amazaroth founders went to great lengths to hide the arrows. Moreover, they forged replicas of the god-killing arrows to confuse the Dark Lord in case he searched for these arrows. Noah found 2 of these replicas. If it wasn't for the original arrow in his possession, he would have believed these replicas as the original ones. Mutrad saw no point in hiding what happened after Alicia and Norvan teleported. He told Noah everything except the fact that he had struck a deal with the Dark Lord. Noah was about to question Mutrad when a Winston family guard interrupted their meeting. "Young Master Noah, there is someone from the guild who wants to meet you." "He said it's urgent," said the guard. "Bring him." Noah waited for the guard to return. A few moments later, the guard came with a guardian. To Noah's surprise, this guardian was one of the men he sent to the southern continent. Their task was to monitor the Dark Ocean and report back to him. Judging by the look on the guardian's face, Noah could tell something happened. The guardian looked reluctant when he saw Mutrad. "It's okay. Tell us what happened," asked Noah. Not that Noah trusted Mutrad, but he wanted to see how Mutrad would react. "Supreme Guardian, the Dark Lord has triggered a heavenly tribulation in the Dark Ocean." As soon as they heard the guardian, they were stunned. Norvan's eyes widened to the point it looked like his eyes were about to pop out. Mutrad's mind went blank. "Is it Ghost, or someone else triggered the heavenly tribulation?" asked Noah. "It's him, Supreme Guardian. He's trying to become an immortal." Mutrad felt that he made the right choice by striking a deal with the Dark Lord. He slaughtered the Arctic Hall's best men when he was just a half immortal. How strong would he be after reaching the immortal stage? Definitely stronger than Noah. God or not, Noah was just a soul-refining stage cultivator. Meanwhile, the Dark Lord was about to reach immortality. "We have to strike him down now. This might be our only opportunity," Norvan quickly said. However, Noah shook his head. Sending a team to interrupt his heavenly tribulation is like sending them to their deaths. He would not have triggered the tribulation without preparing for the worst, so are we going to sit around and wait for him to get stronger? Asked Norvin as Noah shook his head. I have plans, said Noah. Noah dismissed the guardian before inviting Mutrad to a feast inside the manor. The rest of the day was pretty much uneventful. Mutrad just had his belly full of food and left the Winston manor. The Winstons were preparing for the baby shower as Catherine and Andres were expecting their second child. Almost everyone prominent in the Elon continent would come to bless the couples. Hence, everyone in the manor had work to their necks. Mutrad just hoped the Dark Lord wouldn't be one of the guests. Chapter 780, Second Armor Piece. On the 6th day of Michael's heavenly tribulation, Adelia was flying about an endless ocean alone. The horizon seemed to be stitched with a silver line. The sea beneath her murmured with hypnotic waves. The palpitating pulse of the sea was steady and peaceful. It soothed her soul to hear the rhythmic songs the waves and the wind composed. A warm, tangy smell came from the sea as she flew. The dazzling moon glowed as much as the sun. Suddenly, she dived down into the ocean. As soon as her body touched the water, she transformed herself into her snake form. In her snake form, she was a monstrous silver snake with diamond-like scales. Her silver scales reflected the light as she swam deeper into the ocean. The deep sea was a world of its own. It was littered with plant life and corals. They glimmered like jewels and diamonds in the sea. Swarms of fish brushed past Adelia without any fear. Adelia didn't even need a light source to navigate through the sea. Instead, she had the luminous stones to light her path. She wondered how a ruin could be in the sea. But she trusted the Dark Lord. Apparently, the second armor piece was hiding in ruin under the sea. After swimming for a few minutes, Adelia noticed two corals the size of boulders next to each other. There was a crack between the two corals. That must be it, thought Adelia. She hastened her speed. For some reason, the closer she got to the boulders, the lighter she felt. She was surprised to see several runes glowing in the boulders. The runes created a beam of light that scanned Adelia from top to bottom. To her surprise, the silver light turned green as the two boulders slowly moved aside. As a result, the crack between them grew wider, revealing a path into the ground. Adelia cautiously swam into the crack. Inside the crack, everything was dark. She had to rely on the distant light. For a few minutes, she was completely blind. Even her Naga eyes didn't help her see in the dark. The darkness around her was exactly like the darkness around the Dark Lord, except this was several times stronger than she felt. Of course, it was stronger because this place was built by the past Dark Lord who was on another level compared to the current Michael. Finally, she saw the light at the end of the tunnel. She hastened her speed. When she reached the light, something pulled her into it. Suddenly, she was standing in a dungeon rather than in the deep sea. She looked around the place. Everywhere she turned, she could see nothing but dark walls. She took a step forward as a torch beside her lit up. One by one, torches lit up, lighting the place. The place creeped out Adelia. She almost regretted taking the task. At first, the Dark Lord considered sending Saber to retrieve the armor piece. However, Adelia asked the Dark Lord to give her the task because she wanted to clear her mind alone. Compared to searching for the god-killing arrows, retrieving the armor piece seemed like a walk in the park to her. But her relief was short-lived. She noticed countless runes lit up in the walls. As soon as they started to glow, Adelia felt her cultivation being suppressed. Her power fell from the half-immortal stage to the fusion stage and then to the body-refining stage. In a couple of seconds, she became powerless. Fucking hell, Adelia cursed the place. She tapped the device around her wrist as the device radiated a dim red light. Soon, her cultivation level rose up to the body-strengthening stage. The arch-energy crystal within the device couldn't raise her power to the half-immortal stage, but it was better than being powerless. Aren't you a treasure to have? Adelia smiled at the device around her wrist. Despite its size and look, this device was the most powerful and valuable thing probably in the entire world. It enabled its wearer to cultivate even within the void line. She still couldn't believe the Dark Lord managed to build such a device all by himself. If it wasn't for this device, she would have been powerless by now. But after seeing the place makes people powerless, Adelia didn't dare to underestimate it. She cautiously walked forward. On her way, she tried to contact Gaia through the earpiece, only to fail. Looks like I am alone, Adelia sighed. Yet again, this was what she wanted. Some alone time from everyone, including her daughter. As much as she loved Gaia, she hated being nagged. Not a single day passed without Gaia asking about her father. Adelia even asked the Dark Lord not to ponder about Gaia's real father. That was something Adelaide did not wish to discuss with anyone. Adelia made herself forward with the silence being her companion. She thought about everything that happened in her life. But her train of thought was suddenly interrupted by a rustling noise. She halted her steps, focusing on the darkness before her. She could mildly hear some footsteps. Slowly, she placed her hand on the katana dangling on her waist. She flicked the sheath as the katana popped out with a clicking sound. The air suddenly started to reek of blood and pungent rotting skin. Unfortunately, she was familiar with this smell. The last time she smelled something putrid was when she visited Dalar's workshop on the undead island with Gaia. Coupled with the slow footsteps and the smell, she had a good guess about what was approaching her. Soon, a grayish-skinned figure with dead eyes staggered toward Adelia. She could smell the toxic pong from their body odors. Their crazy, diseased eyes would terrify an oblivious man. To Adelia, they were nothing but annoyances. She took a step forward, keeping her hand on the katana's hilt. The undead tilted its head as it reached out toward Adelia. When it was just an arm's reach away, Adelia unsheathed her katana as the zombie's head flew away from its body. The decapitation happened so quickly, like a flash of lightning. Her katana even formed a white line in the air. Even the Dark Lord was impressed by her sword skills, especially how she handled the katana. He used to call him the Lady Samurai. But Adelia had no idea why he called her that. The zombie staggered around without a head before falling down. Black goo oozed out of its neck as the pungent smell increased in the air. Adelia walked away from the corpse but not before taking a flesh sample from the corpse. It was not for Dalar but for the Dark Lord. As she moved forward, she faced a couple more undead. Regardless of the undead, she avoided using spells. She was under the sea, and the structure seemed ancient. She didn't want to risk destroying the place with her spells. Besides, she did not need spells to kill the undead. The further she went, the more undead she faced. But no matter how many undead were on her path, they all met the same fate. Each katana swing decapitated a zombie. Her moves were deadly and precise. After a while, the undead stopped appearing. Silence fell over the dungeon once again. Where were they coming from? Adelia asked herself. The runes flowing in the walls seemed awfully similar to Elidar's creations. This time travel thing fucks with my brain, Adelia kicked the wall. She wondered how this place would remain still if the previous Dark Lord reset the entire universe. The only explanation she had was the previous Dark Lord was powerful enough to leave some places untouched by the time-traveling array. Otherwise, the first energy and the armor pieces couldn't exist in the current timeline. She continued to walk in utter silence for another 30 minutes. Luckily, she came across no undead. Still, she didn't feel relieved. On the contrary, the silence and the lack of undead creeped her out. If the past Dark Lord had built this place, she knew he must have placed traps and obstacles to stop outsiders from getting to the armor piece. Her instincts were proven right when she heard a loud thud from several meters ahead of her. The ground started to shake as though something gigantic was approaching her. She halted her steps and waited for it to reveal itself. A few seconds later, she vaguely saw a giant bat-like creature walking on two legs toward her. Jersh! The creature roared at Adelia. It looked at her with eyes burning with rage. Suddenly, it pounded its chest like a gorilla. So the Pastelar managed to create some fucked up creatures, huh? Adelia snickered. Judging by how ugly the creature was, she knew it must be one of Dalar's creations. No one in the Dark Lord's army could create such an ugly abomination except for Dalar. The creature slowly moved forward. Each of its claws looked as sharp as the katana in her hand. Despite its ugliness, the creature seemed to possess some intelligence. Otherwise, it would have dashed forward instead of slowly taking steps. Since the path wasn't wide enough to move around, they had to face each other head-on. The creature growled as Adelia took a step forward. Adelia's grip around the hilt tightened. She looked ambler in front of the 8-feet monster before her. It waited for Adelia to make the first move. She didn't disappoint the creature as she dashed forward. At that moment, she had no idea this creature was one of the many obstacles created by the Dark Lord. To get the armor pieces, she had to overcome each and every obstacle. Chapter 781, The Trials for the Second Armor Piece. The creature deflected Adelia's katana with its claw. Sparks flew from the collision. Adelia almost lost the katana due to the massive force. She quickly slid under the creature. The creature stomped the ground as Adelia leaped away from it. Jurchich! The creature roared. It opened its thin wings. Adelia anticipated the creature's next attack. As it flapped its wings, Adelia raised her hand, creating a jade shield to block the wind blast. The creature did not back off with one flap. Instead, it flapped its wings again and again. The dungeon began to tremble. Bits and pieces of the ceiling crumbled down. Oh no! You are going to kill us both, Adelia snickered. She quickly dashed at the creature to prevent it from destroying the place. The creature swung its front legs. Adelia slid under its arms and cut its thigh. Blood spurted out as the creature roared in pain. The creature stumbled down. Her blade cut several inches deep into its thighs. The creature stomped the ground. Adelia tried to leap away, but the shock wave blasted her onto the wall behind before she could escape. The creature's eyes burned with rage and pain. To Adelia's surprise, the creature picked a handful of soil and rubbed it in its wound. The creature again surprised Adelia by taking the torch and burning its wound. Finally, the bleeding stopped. Adelia had to admire the creature's intelligence. This time, the creature dashed at Adelia with lightning speed. Even Adelia failed to roll out of its path. As a result, the creature swatted Adelia like a bug. The force threw Adelia onto a wall. She coughed blood. Without twisting any second, Adelia quickly retrieved a healing potion from her space ring and chugged it down her throat. She immediately felt revitalized. Cuts and bruises on her body faded away. Seeing her use the healing potion, the creature shrieked. It pounded its chest as though it hated her using the potion. Do you hate that ugly? Adelia antagonized the creature. Once again, the creature dashed at her faster than before. Adelia did not move. On the contrary, she pressed her feet on the ground and stayed still. When the creature swung its claws, Adelia bent backward, evading the claws. After missing the target, the creature lost its balance for a second. Adelia immediately utilized this by leaping onto the creature's back. She used arch energy to speed up her moves. Before the creature could retaliate, Adelia landed straight on its back. She plunged the katana into the creature's neck. She was about to slice its neck, cutting the cord, when the creature jumped upwards. Since Adelia was on its back, she hit the ceiling pretty hard. The force almost turned her inside into outside. She fell off its back as her katana was still stuck into its back. The creature quickly grabbed Adelia and hit her against the ground. It sent Adelia flying with a single kick. Adelia's vision blurred. Blood oozed out of her nostrils and mouth. I am fucking done with this, Adelia coughed. The creature pounded its chest once again. It waited for Adelia to use the healing potion. On the contrary, Adelia picked herself up without using the healing potion. Her pupils flickered. When she blinked, her human pupils turned vertically slit like a snake's. Under the creature's furious gaze, Adelia's body transformed. The creature took a step back in feet in a few moments. She went from human to giant snake. She stood 9 feet tall. HSSSSS, Adelia hissed. She slithered toward the creature. It hit Adelia with its claws, yet its claws couldn't even graze her skin. Her body moved around the creature. The creature tried to leap away, but Adelia coiled around the creature. The creature was trapped. She slowly squeezed the creature with her body. Jrrr. The creature roared as it violently swung its claws left and right. Adelia didn't feel anything. Her skin scales were like steel. No matter how hard the creature tried, it couldn't harm Adelia. The creature's roar slowly turned into a scream. Its eyes glimmered with pain. Slowly, Adelia crushed the creature's bones. The more she squeezed the creature, the louder the sickening crunch sounded. The creature's scream slowly lost its volume. Gradually, the creature stopped moving. Blood spurted out of every pore in its body. Suddenly, a stream of blood sprayed out of the creature's body. The creature's body looked crooked. Adelia moved her head above the creature. She slowly opened her mouth as jade smoke flowed from her mouth. The jade smoke enveloped the creature, slowly turning its body into ashes. Adelia's katana fell down with a clinking sound. Finally, Adelia transformed herself back into her human form. The creature was reduced to a hot pile of ash. Ugly bastard, Adelia snickered. She picked up the katana and unsheathed it. After killing the creature, Adelia resumed her journey. The creature made her realize this place was more dangerous than she initially thought. She became vigilant, focusing on her surroundings. Luckily, the torches lit up further she moved. Once again, everything became silent. At that moment, even a point-dropping sound would sound like a bell. Only her shadow and the silence accompanied her forward. She wondered how long it took the Dark Lord to build this dungeon. Although she was a half-immortal, the runes around her suppressed her cultivation. Without the device around her wrist, she couldn't have survived the creature. If someone else had entered this place somehow, they would have been the creature's food by now. The silence lasted for a few more minutes. Then, she began to hear the undead growling once again. Compared to the creature, these undeads were just an annoyance in her path. She thought about using spells, but the walls and ceiling looked unstable. Before getting her hands on the armor piece, she couldn't risk flooding the dungeon. The undead staggered toward her from the darkness. She counted at least 20 undeads before her. Despite their number, Adelia showed no signs of distress. Instead, she just smiled. Once again, she unsheathed her katana. With just a swing, she cleaved 2 heads clean off their shoulders. Unlike the creature she faced earlier, these undeads possessed no intelligence. Even after Adelia killed 2, the others reached out to her as though nothing had happened. Adelia did not even flinch as she cut down the zombies without slowing down. Her sword swings were several times faster than the zombies. Before they could touch her, they lost their heads. The black goo splattered across the dark walls and the ground. As much as she loved killing the undead, she reeked of rotten eggs and meat because of the black goo. Fortunately, there was no one beside her. After cutting down the undead, she saw a ray of light in the distance. She hastened her steps. A few minutes later, the narrow tunnel opened into a spacious hall. The moment she stepped into the hall, the place lit up. She noticed a couple of huge braziers with blue flames burning atop. In the dazzling blue light produced by the flames, Adelia noticed several statues around the hall. But what drew her attention more was the black chest in the center. The chest was sat on top of a pillar. When she looked closer, she noticed a giant lock with 5 keyholes. The ray of light peeked through the ceiling and illuminated the dark chest. The armor piece must be inside, Adelia mumbled but didn't take another step forward. She looked around the hall, counting the 5 statues. 5 keyholes, 5 statues. I have a bad feeling about this, said Adelia. Each of the statues looked distinct. One of them resembled the bat creature she fought earlier. The others looked weird and bizarre. Adelia took a deep breath before taking another step. Deep down, she expected something to happen. Just as she expected, one of the statues trembled the moment she stepped forward. This statue looked like a gargoyle. Pieces of stone crumbled down from the statue, revealing its jade skin. The creature was the size of an adult lion. At least the gargoyle wasn't as big as the bat creature earlier. That was a subtle advantage for Adelia in this battle. The gargoyle-looking creature shook itself, yanking the remaining stone pieces on its body. Adelia vaguely saw a golden key on its neck. If she had to guess, she would say this key would fit the keyhole in the lock. As she took another step, the creature noticed her. It locked its crimson-red eyes with her. Coincidentally, the creature was exactly as strong as she was. It was at the body-strengthening stage. She closed her eyes for a moment to focus on her inner energy. Unfortunately, the runes were still suppressing her cultivation. The creature scratched the ground with its front legs before running toward her. Since they were both at the same cultivation stage, it was a battle of strategy and technique instead of spells and energy. When the creature was just a meter away from Adelia, she stabbed it with her katana. Cling! The katana didn't even penetrate an inch. Instead, Adelia's hands went numb. She felt as though she had stabbed a boulder. The creature hit Adelia with its head and sent her flying. While she was in the air, the creature bit the katana. The creature spat the katana to the other side of the hall. Adelia growled. As she picked herself up, the creature roared. To her surprise, the roar turned into a peal of laughter. Adelia was stunned. She didn't expect the creature to laugh at her. Moreover, it was mocking laughter. She burned with rage being ridiculed by a creature such as this. "It's on," Adelia cracked her knuckles. Her eyes glimmered with rage. Without waiting for the creature to attack her, she dashed at it. She didn't retrieve any weapons from her space ring. Instead, she chose to fight with her bare hands. Chapter 782, Poison-spewing snake. Adelia and the gargoyle clashed in the middle. Their collision made sparks fly. Instead of using a weapon, Adelia fought with her bare hands. The gargoyle raised both its front legs to crush her, but Adelia grabbed its legs and overpowered the gargoyle. Even without cultivation power, Adelia was able to match the gargoyle's raw strength. The gargoyle tried to take a bite of Adelia's head, yet it couldn't reach her. Arg! Adelia roared as she pushed back the gargoyle. Every bit of muscle in Adelia's body bulged up. Purple veins appeared on her skin as her pupils became slit vertically. Eventually, she pushed the gargoyle against the wall. While the gargoyle was struggling, Adelia kicked it in the leg. The gargoyle roared. She kicked it in the leg in the same spot again and again until cracks appeared in its leg made of jade. Regardless of what it was made of, the gargoyle roared in pain just like any other beast would. The gargoyle stumbled down as it matched Adelia's height. As soon as it met Adelia's gaze, the gargoyle became crazed with pain and rage. It violently tried to munch her head with its big mouth. Adelia moved her head left and right, avoiding the gargoyle's mouth by mere inches. They were at a stalemate for a few moments until Adelia lifted the gargoyle by its leg and smashed it on the ground. It happened so quickly. Her raw strength was beyond any typical body-strengthening stage cultivators. The gargoyle didn't expect such strength and movement from her. The ground cracked by the collision. Without giving the gargoyle any time to retaliate, Adelia sent it flying with a kick, just like how it kicked her earlier. She cracked her neck. The gargoyle struggled to get back to its feet. The crack in its leg grew wider when it stood up. Adelia locked her gaze with the golden key around its neck. As though the gargoyle realized her intention, it looked at the key for a moment. Adelia once again dashed at the gargoyle as it flapped its jade wings to leap into the air. Hovering in mid-air, the gargoyle opened its mouth. Several jade spikes shot out of its mouth. Adelia managed to roll out, evading the rain of spikes. "You got some tricks, huh?" Adelia snickered. With a single jump, she leaped into the air. In mid-air, she punched the gargoyle right in the face. When he first met the gargoyle's jade face, it sounded like an explosion went off. The gargoyle went crashing down. Before it could get back to its feet, Adelia shot toward the gargoyle. She landed on the gargoyle's head. "Jerkish!" the gargoyle roared. However, Adelia grabbed its jade wings and ripped them off with brute strength. She sat on top of the gargoyle, locking its head using her arms. She squeezed the gargoyle's neck as hard as she could. Cracks slowly formed around the gargoyle's neck. It tried to stand, only to fail. Adelia kept pushing it down and squeezing its neck. The cracks grew wider and wider until jade pieces crumbled down from its body. The gargoyle's feet squirmed as the glow in its eyes slowly faded away. A while later, more and more jade pieces crumbled down. Soon, its head bobbed without life. Finally, Adelia roared as she ripped off the gargoyle's neck from its shoulder. As soon as she destroyed the gargoyle's neck, its entire body turned into nothing but jade dust. Only the golden key remained intact. Adelia breathed heavily on the ground. She slowly grabbed the key. "One out, for more to go," Adelia said. Adelia picked herself up. With the key in her hand, she made her way to the chest in the center. The chest trembled slightly when she put the key inside the lock. Afterward, dark smoke escaped from the chest before floating toward another statue. It was a 9-foot cobra with wings on top. Adelia quickly took out a healing potion and emptied it down her throat. Just like before, the stone statue trembled as pieces of stone crumbled down. Soon, a purple-skinned snake came to life from the statue. Its emerald green eyes glimmered with killing intent. The snake slithered around the hall instead of attacking Adelia. The blue flames from the brazier illuminated the diamond scales on the snake. The snake almost matched Adelia's true form. It hissed at Adelia yet kept its distance from her. The snake seemed like it was studying Adelia. Since she was not in a hurry, she waited for the snake to make its first move. Moreover, Adelia tried to find the key on the snake's body. To her surprise, she saw a glimmer inside the snake's mouth when it hissed at her. Adelia slowly stepped toward her katana. Unlike the gargoyle's stone-like skin, the snake's skin seemed soft and vulnerable to her blade. The snake stopped moving. Instead, it turned its head toward the katana. The snake hissed as it realized Adelia's intention. Finally, it slowly moved toward Adelia. When it was just a few meters away, the snake suddenly swung its tail. Adelia quickly managed to jump in the air, avoiding the tail. She dashed at the katana before landing back on the ground. The snake surprised Adelia by spitting a purple glob at Adelia. She swayed her body to the side in the air, barely evading the glob. When it flew past her face, Adelia smelled a nauseating stench. There was no doubt in her mind that this glob was poison. The ground sizzled like deep frying. The glob of poison was powerful enough to roast the ground itself. Adelia could only imagine what would happen if the poisonous glob landed on her skin. The snake continued to shoot out purple globs as Adelia finally grabbed the katana. One of the globs landed right where the katana was a moment ago. She wasn't sure the katana could survive the poison. As a Naga, Adelia was able to gauge how poisonous the glob was. According to her, this purple glob was several times more potent than the poison in her poison gland. Adelia dashed out of the poison glob's trajectory. For a few moments, she zigzagged through the hall, evading the globs. She waited for the snake to stop shooting. When it did, Adelia dashed at the snake. The snake's giant body slowed its movements. Adelia's human form made her nimble and agile. As a result, she cut the snake before it could move away. As she hoped, the snake's skin wasn't as tough as the gargoyle's. Her katana cut the snake deep. Purplish blood spurted out of its body. Even its blood was poisonous. She quickly swung her katana, yanking the blood off her blade. The snake hissed. She used the arch energy to leap into the air. Since it was a snake, Adelia targeted its eyes. If it couldn't see her, she would be at an advantage. To the snake's surprise, Adelia raised her hand as two golden beams shot out of her hands. The snake was caught off guard. It did not expect Adelia to use a spell. Thanks to the device around her wrist, she cast a spell. The two beams penetrated the snake's eyes. Jersh! The snake roared in agony. Its scream almost tore Adelia's eardrums. The snake's body violently twitched. Adelia pressed her advantage by boosting her speed with arch energy. She flew around the snake, cutting the snake repeatedly. Unfortunately, the snake was too thick to cut its head with a single cut. Hence, she had to cut around her neck again and again, one small cut at a time. Suddenly, the snake began to shoot a poisonous cloud. The purple cloud of poison enveloped the hall. For a moment, Adelia's throat burnt as her vision turned blurry. She just took a whiff, and the poison already affected her body. But being the mother of the Dark Lord's fiancé came with a few perks. One of them was a special mask and antidote for poisons. She quickly put the mask on her face before she lost consciousness. Then, she immediately drank the silver potion. Gradually, her vision cleared up. Just to be safe, Adelia drank a healing potion. She was almost tempted to use the berserker pill Gaia gave her. But she chose not to. The snake was strong but not strong enough to give Adelia a headache. The snake would have been a bloody paste if she could use her cultivation. Furthermore, Adelia was a battle junkie, just like Gaia. The stronger the opponent was, the more excited she would feel. Simply put, Adelia wanted the battle to last long. Battles calmed her mind and soul in her own twisted, strange way. She patiently waited for the snake to stop spewing poisonous clouds. Surprisingly, it took almost 5 minutes. Only then did the purple poison in the air clear. The snake's movements slowed down. Adelia knew the snake was exhausted. Coupled with the cuts in its body and the blind eyes, the snake was on its way to greet the death. She just had to speed up the process. Once again, Adelia dashed at the snake. Considering the snake was blinded by her, it had no idea that Adelia was on her way to end its life. Because it was a snake, Adelia felt a bit of pity for it. Hence, she just leaped into the air and stabbed the snake right between the eyes. The snake stopped its twitching all of a sudden. The snake let out a groan before collapsing down. Just like the gargoyle, the snake's body turned into a pile of dust after it died. The golden key glimmered within the ash. She picked up the key from the ground. 3 to go, said Adelia. She took a deep breath as she went to put the sky in the lock. But before she could do that, Adelia drank a healing potion. For a few moments, she just took deep breaths. Because she knew that another statue would come to life when she used the key in the lock. Therefore, she wanted to take a few moments to rest her body. Each of the 3 remaining statues looked terrifying. Anyone would have been worried but not Adelia. She looked excited to face 3 more beasts. Chapter 783, something related to the Dark Lord. While Adelia was fighting the beasts to get the second piece of the armor left behind by the past Dark Lord, Saber was heading for Ysirius. His destination was the Aqua Palace. Sadie received a piece of information about something valuable that was about to be auctioned. Surprisingly, this item had some kind of connection to the Dark Lord. Hence, Saber attended the auction under the Dark Queen's order. Since the Dark Lord was in his heavenly tribulation, most of his subordinates were on the floating mountain except for Saber. Rather than participating in the auction himself, Saber was ordered to be a spectator. If the item had any significance to the Dark Lord, Saber was ordered to track down the buyer and steal it. Gaia didn't bother to spend millions of gold coins in the auction, especially when they were in a financial crisis. By the time Saber reached the outskirts, the darkness had enveloped the world. Although Saber had no need to worry about the daylight anymore, he still loved the night more than the day. On a pitch-dark night, the Aqua Palace was fairly quiet. Several groups of guards patrolled the island, and each of them was at the soul refining stage. The Aqua Palace spared no expense in armoring them up. They were armored to the teeth, and their armor glowed in the night due to the runes engraved in them. As Saber approached the island, he noticed a sliver of glow around the island. Apparently, they placed new arrays and runes to ensure the island's defense. The last thing the Aqua Palace wanted was an attack from the Dark Lord. But Saber knew the Dark Lord had more pressing concerns than attacking the Aqua Palace for no reason. As far as Saber was concerned, the world was so wrong about the Dark Lord. He wasn't as evil as the Guardians painted him to be. Saber heard hushed discussions and commands from all over Aqua Palace. Most conversations were about the royal dragon skeleton the Aqua Palace dug out recently. Neither Saber nor the Dark Lord had any interest in the skeleton. Hence, Saber paid no attention to these conversations. But none of them talked about the mysterious item Saber was looking for. The auction was scheduled to begin when the sun rose. Since Saber had arrived at the island earlier, he sat under a tree, enjoying some peace and quiet. He even closed his eyes to take a quick nap. The night quickly passed. Sun broke the dark skies from the horizon, showering the island with its golden rays. Saber's eyelids twitched as he slowly opened his eyes. The Aqua Palace had been decorated with ribbons and lanterns as nobles and commoners streamed in and out of the building. The VIPs were flying in another direction to enter the place using a separate entrance. Today was the first day of the Aqua Palace auction. Last time the Dark Lord himself honored the auction by participating. This time, the Aqua Palace hoped he wouldn't arrive. They had arrays and security mechanisms to catch him if he did. Unknowing to the people, the Guardians were roaming the island, just in case. In the past, the auction time had always been the busiest day in Ysirius. Thousands of people would come from every part of the continent to watch and participate in the auction. However, today was an exception. Compared to the last time, Saber saw fewer people on the island. As a regular to the auction, Saber could tell the decrease in the crowd. The sun slowly rose into the air, emitting a red glow that bathed the lands in its warm light. More and more people began to gather at the Aqua Palace. People found it extremely difficult to walk to the entrance without being squeezed. Saber was among the first 30 people who entered the building. After he entered, he heard firecrackers and a thunderous bell. They symbolized the start of the auction. Crowd or no crowd, the Aqua Palace began the auction right on time. Just like any other organization, the Aqua Palace also raised the entry fee. They charged 70 gold coins per person, unlike the last time when they charged 50 gold coins. Although this price hike made a small group unhappy as usual, it did not stop them from paying. No commoner would have dared to participate if someone charged 70 gold coins in Elan or Azer continent. But this wasn't Elan or Azer. In our continent, even a commoner could spare 70 gold coins. There was a reason why everyone called the our continent the richest. After the gates opened up for the auction house, the people that already had tickets and had been waiting outside for a very long time began to enter through the entrance in a straight line. Saber covered his face with a gray hood. He slipped into the crowd, slowly following the people to the auction hall. As he reached the inner halls, a large grandeur hall greeted his eyes. The space was filled with neat rows of seats for as far as the eye could see. There were at least 3,000 seats around the hall. The auction hall had 2 stories worth of seats. Installed on the sides of every seat were dozens of private rooms for VIPs. A tinted glass wall separated each room. The VIPs could clearly see the outside through the tinted glass, but no one on the outside could see what was happening inside. Everyone focused on the stage in the middle where the items would be auctioned. Several stands remained in a neat row in the center. They were all covered with red cloth to prevent people from seeing through. Finding a relatively isolated seat, Saber calmly sat down and waited for the auction to start. People all around him were slowly starting to settle down as well. Eventually, the auction house was filled up. One couldn't find a single empty seat. Changing the auction hall was a great tactic by the Aqua Palace. If they had held this auction in the hall they used last year, many seats would have been empty. This would have ruined the Aqua Palace's reputation. They knew there would be fewer crowds than the last time. Hence they chose a smaller hall. The Dark Lord was one of the biggest reasons for the decrease in the crowd, but the Aqua Palace refused to admit that. Just as the final seats were taken and everyone had settled down, Saber heard another set of firecrackers exploding. People curiously stared at the stands as the red cloth slowly began to rise. One by one, the concealed items were revealed to the crowd. A few moments later, an elderly man descended to the center from the sky. He was the auctioneer, Rixton, the same man who auctioned the items when Michael was here. Rixton's eyes swept the audience as he cleared his throat before introducing himself. Honored guests, I thank you all for participating in our Aqua Palace's annual auction. I, Rixton Bash, will host this year's auction. I hope everyone will buy an item or items they longed for. Rixton paused for a moment to clear his throat once more before continuing to speak. Due to recent events, you may notice more guards and security arrays. They are in place to safeguard the people. So rest assured you can be at peace. Now without further ado, I'll declare that the auction has officially begun. Rixton looked over his shoulder as a young, elegant woman slowly walked to his side. She gently put her hand into the first glass box and lifted up a golden pill. She raised her hand so everyone could clearly see the energy radiating from the pill. Honored guests, we shall now auction away the first item. Rixton looked at the pill before turning his gaze back at the crowd. The very first item is a blood lily pill. For the honored guests unfamiliar with this item, only 12 pills exist in the world. They were concocted by legendary alchemist Ingrid Stenham. Many people looked clueless. As though Rixton had expected this reaction from the crowd, he explained further. Ingrid Stenham was a 6-star alchemist and the first supreme guardian of the Guardian Guild. Her mastery of alchemy is still unmatched. These pills were one of the few gifts she left behind before ascending to the higher realms. Those who looked clueless gasped after Rixton explained. Even an oblivious man knew about the status of a supreme guardian. Moreover, Rixton said she had ascended to higher realism. This was enough to make people shudder in shock. As a member of the Order, Saber knew everything about Ingrid Stenham. For instance, he knew that she was one of the Mazeroth founders. Consuming this pill would clear any bottlenecks in your cultivation. Furthermore, you won't have any bottlenecks in the future at all, said Rixton. Many nobles leaned forward in their seats. Their eyes lit up as many were stuck at the same stage for decades due to bottlenecks. This pill could finally enable them to break through to the next stage. Rixton smiled as he knew the nobles would go crazy for the pill. Saber was surprised that the auction began with a priceless pill such as this. The starting bid for the Blood Lily pill is 5 million gold coins. Every new bid will add an additional 1 million minimum. You may begin bidding. Rixton's thunderous voice swept across the hall. 6 million. 8 million. 9 million. As Rixton expected, the nobles fought like starving dogs for the pill. In a few minutes, the pill's price went from 5 million to 15 million. The price was nothing compared to having no bottlenecks in their lives. Saber calmly watched the nobles fight for the pills with a faint smile on his face. The Order had no need for such a pill when they had the Dark Lord. After a fierce battle, the pill bottle was sold to the highest bidder for 25 million gold coins. Saber's eyes were focused on the items behind Rixton. Among them, none seemed to have any connection to the Dark Lord. Maybe he was wrong, but waiting was the only option he had. The pendant on Saber's neck dimly glowed as Gaia was looking at the auction through the pendant from the Dark Ocean. Sadie better be right about this, Saber heard the Dark Queen's voice in his head. Chapter 784, third armor piece. Rixton auctioned several interesting items for humongous prices after the pill. But Saber had no interest in any of them. Nothing seemed to have any connection to the Dark Lord at all. He may not have a clear idea about the item, but he wasn't stupid either. He knew better than to think a spell scroll or a rune mastery book had any significance to the Dark Lord. The auction continued for another hour until Rixton announced a short break before continuing. Many hated the hustle of leaving the hall and coming back. Hence, they stayed still. But the nobles and the VIPs went outside to take some fresh air. Meanwhile, Saber looked at his surroundings and noticed a few guardians among them. Saber doubted the soul-refining stage guards and a few fusion stage guardians could stop the Dark Lord if he decided to attack. Fortunately, Saber concealed his cultivation stage with the help of Elidar's rune. Otherwise, his fusion stage cultivation might have raised a few eyebrows. Being a fusion stage cultivator in the VIP rooms was one thing, but sitting among the commoners was not normal. The guardians would have immediately alerted the Supreme Guardian if they had seen Saber. Soon, seconds turned into minutes, and minutes turned into hours. Saber waited patiently for Rixton to return. He hoped Rixton would bring new items to auction. As Saber expected, several guards accompanied Rixton to the stage. They carried another set of items covered with red cloth. Once again, the bell rang, following the sound of firecrackers. The crowd gradually shut their mouth. Rixton waited for the crowd to turn completely silent. A while later, Rixton cleared his throat. "Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Let us begin the second part of the auction without delay," said Rixton. He looked over his shoulder as a soldier flicked his wrist. A bright light shot out of the soldier's finger. The very next moment, something covered in silver cloth appeared before Rixton. Saber slightly leaned forward. Unlike the other items, this one was covered in thick silver cloth. Besides, the soldiers around the item looked a bit confused and flustered. Saber saw a glimmer of doubt and uneasiness in Rixton's eyes. Just like Saber, everyone in the auction hall had their eyes glued to the black cloth-covered thing. Saber faintly heard a faint crackling noise coming from the thing. Rixton let the people speculate for some time. Eventually, Rixton placed his hand on the cloth. As the host slowly lifted the silver cloth up, the hidden object underneath was finally revealed to the eagerly anticipating crowd. Underneath the cloth was a piece of armor. To be more precise, a grayish arm armor. It could cover one's entire right arm from shoulder to wrist. The armor looked ancient. Tiny crimson-red lightning bolts crackled around the armor piece. Saber was stunned. This armor piece, without a doubt, belonged to the Dark Lord because he had seen another piece of the complete set. Although the armor piece brought to the Dark Ocean by Adelia was in much better condition than this one, it certainly belonged to that set. For a moment, Saber's mind went completely blank. According to the Dark Lord, each piece was severely guarded and hidden from the rest of the world. But the Aqua Palace somehow managed to get their hands on the armor piece. The armor looked like it had been buried in the ground for decades. Saber could barely see the runes and designs engraved in the armor. Surprisingly, the armor piece radiated no energy. Except for the red lightning bolts coiling around the armor, it looked no better than worn-out armor. People looked confused and interested at the same time. "What the fuck am I looking at? Is that an armor piece?" Saber heard Gaia's shocked voice. "How did they get it?" Gaia was stunned. She took a closer look at the armor through the spider on Saber's neck. Judging by its look, the armor piece looked similar to the other. The engraving of a skull on the shoulder plate looked exactly like the Dark Lord symbol. So unless this was an elaborate scheme to trap the Dark Lord once again, Gaia knew that the armor piece must be genuine. The armor piece sat in a glass box under everyone's curious gazes. Looking at the armor, many began to murmur among themselves. "What kind of armor is that? It looks rather worn out. Where is the rest of the armor set?" Let's hear what Rixton has to say about the armor piece. "It looks special to me, yeah, look at the lightning bolts around it. Red lightning. It's definitely something special, if I had to bet, I wouldn't go past million gold coins. After the armor was revealed, the originally quiet auction house instantly buzzed to life. Everyone's gazes fell on the armor in the glass box. The sounds of intense discussion and gasps of amazement overlapped ceaselessly. Among the people present, quite a few had lived for dozens of years yet had never seen such an armor piece. Ladies and gentlemen. Rixton silenced the murmuring with his words. His thunderous voice swept across the hall as the discussions about the armor gradually died down. Rixton smiled, looking at the hundreds of thousands of people attending the auction, and loudly declared, "Our team of adventurers recently unearthed this armor in Gimbular after the battle between two fusion stage cultivators," said Rixton. Everyone in the hall knew about this big battle that happened a few months ago in a dwarven kingdom. Apparently, a dwarven royal guard and a rogue dwarven cultivator went all in to kill each other. Since the dwarves were usually battle-hungry fiends, no one was surprised at their battle. However, their battle reduced several villages to ruin. Apparently, their battle happened to happen above a dungeon built to guard the armor piece. Because of time and the effects of the battle, the armor piece was unearthed by the adventurers. The battle lasted a week until the rogue dwarf managed to escape Gimbular. Noah tried to stop the battle, but the dwarves gave no face to the Guardian Guild. They even rejected the Empress' request to send dwarven forces to stop the battle before more dwarves became homeless or dead. If Michael had known their battle would expose his armor piece, he would have taken out the two dwarves and retrieved the armor himself. According to our scholars, this armor piece was forged using an unknown or which had gone either extinct or came to this world from higher realms. People gasped in shock. Rixton's words piqued their interest in the armor piece. As an experienced auctioneer, Rixton knew how to raise an item's value with just words. This armor piece is engraved with several runes, which we believe might lead to the other armor pieces. In its full form, our scholars believe this armor could withstand a half-immortal's attack. Rixton paused for a moment. Although we do not recommend it, one can melt down the armor to forge an unstoppable weapon out of this strange ore. I am going to fucking kill that son of a bitch, Gaia roared after hearing Rixton's words. Just the thought of someone melting the armor piece made Gaia's blood boil. As you can see, this armor creates these bolts of red lightning. I was assured that we could have unearthed the armor's secrets if we had more time. But the Aqua Palace has decided it's better on your hands than on ours, said Rixton. He omitted that their scholars completely failed to learn anything about the armor piece. They knew better than anyone this armor was useless without the rest of the pieces. In fact, the Aqua Palace didn't even battle test the armor. They feared any attacks on the armor piece would wreck it completely, thus making the armor piece a scrap. In other words, the Dark Lord made sure even if someone had managed to get the piece of armor somehow, they wouldn't be able to use it at all. The Aqua Palace had a rule not to wear any armors they unearthed from unknown ruins. They came up with this rule when someone in the Aqua Palace wore armor cursed by a powerful elven witch. The Aqua Palace almost went extinct at that time. Ever since then, they had a strict rule not to wear or use anything unknown to them. This rule saved them once again as the Dark Lord armor piece was engraved with deadly runes. They would have turned to dust if someone else had worn the armor. The armor piece may look old and worn out, but it was still capable of killing people. Whoever wins the bid for the armor will get 1 hour with a 5-star runemaster and blacksmith from the Aqua Palace. You can learn more about this armor from the best of the bests, said Rixton. Some of the VIPs became really excited by the armor. They were the collectors who invested in ancient items such as this armor. Idiots didn't even consider the armor might belong to the Dark Lord, Gaia snickered. But she couldn't blame them either. The past Dark Lord left these armor pieces before resetting the timeline. No one, even Michael, had no idea how long the past Dark Lord lived from his time. What happened to the past Dark Lord was the biggest mystery Michael had come across in his life. Fortunately, Adelia was one step closer to figuring out the previous Dark Lord's life. Let us start the bid for the armor piece. The starting price is 3 million gold coins. Each bid should increase by 2 million. 6 million. Someone from the VIP room bid for the armor. Don't let the armor piece out of your sight, Saber. When he wakes up, I want to present this to him. So don't disappoint me, Gaia said in a stern voice. You want, said Saber. 8 million, 10 million, the VIPs and the nobles continued to raise the bid. Rixton was really surprised by their bids. But he didn't know that one of the bidders was the war god of Gondolin. At that moment, both a war god and a vampire were hoping to get their hands on the armor. Only time could tell who would emerge as the victor between them. Chapter 785, War God of Gondolin. While Saber was following the third armor piece, Adelia was breathing heavily inside the dungeon. She had defeated 4 beasts and was fighting the last one. Unlike the previous 4, the last one was not any typical beast. It was just a giant blob of goo that was immune to all physical and magical attacks. She had been fighting the red blob of good for 5 hours. She was exhausted. No matter how hard she hit the blob, she couldn't hurt it at all. It neither had any limbs nor a face. Hence, it was tough for her to tell what the beast was thinking or about to do. Strangely, the blob did not attack Adelia but kept her from reaching the chest. Moreover, she didn't see any key on its body. She had a bad feeling that the key might be inside the goo, but she didn't wish to test that theory. Why? Because the blob of good stank to high heaven. Never in her life had she smelled something so putrid and nauseating. She couldn't even find something to compare the smell with. To fight the smell, she had to wear a mask on her face. Still, the smell managed to penetrate the mask itself. What the fuck are you? Adelia growled. She raised her hand as a stream of fire shot out of her hands. She had already tried to burn the blob, only to fail. But she hoped this time would be different. On the contrary, the red flames just brushed past the blob, causing no harm to it. Adelia was annoyed to the point she dashed at the blob with her katana raised. She wanted to chop the blob into countless pieces. The blob quickly moved in front of the chest, shielding it with its body. It was really surprising how fast the blob moved to protect the shield. She wondered what would have happened if she had brought backup. Thinking about it, she almost regretted not bringing Saber or his men with her. She cut the blob in anger. It felt like she had cut a wax statue. The cut in its body closed in a blink of an eye. Arg! Adelia roared as she raised her hand. In a blink of an eye, a chakra appeared above the blob. Jade spikes shot out from the spinning chakra. The spikes penetrated the blob into its body. However, the spikes barely harmed the blob. It just absorbed these spikes with its gooey body. She even tried to turn herself into her true form and attack the blob, yet everything led to utter failure. This blob was immune to everything. Come on. Out of the way, ugly, Adelia said, leaping away from the blob. The blob did not respond to her. Not a single peep came out of its mouth. Since the blob hadn't attacked her yet, she just sat down and breathed heavily. The blob remained still before the chest instead of attacking her. It seemed to have no intention of attacking, nor it had any offensive capabilities. This blob was created to protect the chest and exhaust the opponent to death. The blob was one of the creations of Dalar when he worked under the past Dark Lord. The Dalar in the current timeline was still years away from creating this blob. In a sense, Adelia was really lucky to face creations from the past. Adelia was tempted to contact Gaia or the Dark Lord himself only if he hadn't triggered a heavenly tribulation. Adelia knew for certain he could destroy this thing in a blink of an eye. Unfortunately, he was not here. Which made dealing with this annoying blob her problem. She stared at it from top to bottom. For the first time in many years, Adelia had no strategy to defeat the monstrosity before her. Silence fell over them. For a few moments, Adelia was on the ground, taking deep breaths. The blob did not move an inch away from the chest. Suddenly, Adelia had a crazy idea in her mind. This should better work. Adelia picked herself up. She sheathed her katana and cracked her neck. Finally, Adelia dashed at the blob once again. On her way to the blob, she raised her hand as a stream of energy shot out of her hand. The energy beam went straight through the blob. As a result, a hole was formed in its center. Adelia immediately increased her speed. Before the hold could close, Adelia leaped into the blob. For the first time, the blob let out a growl. The hole closed up with Adelia inside. The blob grew in size as it frantically moved around the hall. Soon, a bright light emerged within the blob. The temperature in the room slowly rose to the point the blob started to melt down. Adelia roasted the blob from the inside. It rolled and leaped into the air, trying to save itself. However, nothing worked in its favor. The blob slowly melted into a red ooze. It formed a puddle that resembled blood on the ground. The air around the blob reeked of putrid stench. It stank to the point one would die of suffocation. Fortunately, Adelia was inside the blob. The growling noise that came from the blob gradually sounded louder. Eventually, the blob exploded into pieces. Adelia fell down to the ground with a thud. She was completely covered in red goo from head to toe. In her hands, a golden key glimmered. The key put a smile on her face. With the fifth and the last key in her hand, she was one step closer to seeing what was inside the chest. She got up to her feet and walked toward the chest. Wasting no time, she put the key in the hole. As soon as she put the key in, she heard a clicking noise. A dark smoke slowly rose from the chest. The chest slowly opened, revealing an ancient piece of armor, just like the Dark Lord said. She couldn't help smiling and sighing in relief. Finally, she picked up the armor from the chest. But to her surprise, a bolt of lightning hit her out of nowhere. She was sent flying away from the chest. It took her a second to realize what had just happened. She hit the wall before falling down. She felt a sharp pain in her chest. Luckily, the lightning bolt did not penetrate her. When she looked up at the chest, gritting her teeth, she noticed a ghostly figure rising from the chest. The figure slowly took the shape of the Dark Lord himself. Dark Lord, Adelia immediately knelt down to pay her respect to the Dark Lord. The aura around him terrified Adelia. His eyes glimmered with amusement. He calmly looked at Adelia. Suddenly, a dark beam shot out of his eyes. The dark beams fell on Adelia. Dash. Bring this chest to your Dark Lord, the Dark Lord said in a powerful voice. Adelia shuddered, hearing his voice. But she managed to nod her head. Yes, Dark Lord, said Adelia. Adelia lifted her head to look at the Dark Lord. He smiled at her. But she saw a glimpse of pain and sadness within his eyes. She wanted to question the Dark Lord. But the ghostly figure of the Dark Lord faded away in front of her. She had no time to say anything to him. After he disappeared, Adelia could only take the chest. She reached the chest and picked it up. This time, nothing happened except she felt the space around her benign distorted. The sun was on the horizon in Ysirius, where the glistening ocean met the orange sky. Its rays spread in all directions like the open arms of a mother. The reds and oranges spread by the final glow of the flame formed a staircase on the surface of the sea around the island. As time passed, the warm rays of the sun grew colder. Eventually, the rays became non-existent, making way for the stars to peek through in the dark blue sky. The aqua auction ended when the darkness completely conquered the kingdom. People exited the aqua palace in a neat line like ants. The island was bustled with people as many ascended to the sky to leave the island. The VIPs were the first ones to leave. Among those VIPs, one of them had the Dark Lord's armor piece. Saber waited until the group disappeared into the clouds before following them behind. Saber kept his distance from the group. They were not some run-of-the-mill cultivators. Instead, the one who bought the armor piece was one of the war gods of Gondolin. Attacking them was equal to waging war against the Empress herself. The Dark Lord himself said that the Empress might be the only one who could face him and survive if they fought. The war god led his party from the front. He was at the fusion stage while the people accompanying him were at the soul refining stage. They weren't his guards but rather his underlings. Saber was extra careful not to get spotted in the airspace of the Aqua Palace. Saber planned to strike when the group left the island and entered the sky above a thick forest. Every war god had immense pride and ego that could be used against them. If Saber attacked them and ran into the woods below them, the war god would follow Saber behind without a doubt. At that time, Saber could use the darkness and the woods to take out the group one by one. With a rough plan in his head, Saber kept following the group. He used the clouds as a cover to hide. "How many of them are there?" Saber heard Gaia. "I count 7, said Saber. "Try not to kill them. We don't want to make enemies with the Empress yet. But if you had to, kill them all, and don't leave anything behind that could be used to track us down," said Gaia. "It will be done, Dark Queen." Saber felt confident taking down all of them if push came to shove. However, he would try not to kill them because of her order. As he was following the group, they suddenly stopped. "How long are you planning to follow us?" Saber heard a calm yet dominant voice. Chapter 786. War God Bellinar. Saber was surprised that the war god had noticed him. As a vampire, he was great at trailing people in the dark. But the war god found him somehow. Saber did not panic. The Dark Lord always said that in the moment of crisis, panic does nothing. Saber recalled those words. He stopped flying as the war god's party slowly turned around. The leader of this group was the war god of Gondolin. No one knew how many war gods the Empress had, but the people thought there were 7. The one Saber followed was one of them. When Michael attended the auction a year ago, he met another war god. Despite their numbers, each of them was extremely powerful. They did not choose to call themselves war gods. Instead, the people called them that, and with time, the name kinda stuck with them. "Who you are does not matter to me. Leave, and you may live," said the war god. His flaming red hair fluttered in the wind. Those eyes of his burned so bright with vigor and power that Saber almost thought someone lit a flame inside them. However, he wore rather ordinary-looking robes like lesser nobles. One would expect the war god to wear some fancy armor and carry a powerful weapon with them. On the contrary, this war god had an aura of simplicity around him. Saber noticed their pointy ears twitching for some reason. Unlike the war god, the other elves burned with rage. They gritted their teeth as they were on the verge of attacking Saber for following them. The elves did not like being followed, especially by a human. The war god, however, gave Saber an option to leave. Not that the war god could be defined as merciful, but he felt it was beneath him to attack a body-strengthening cultivator. Only if Saber showed his true cultivation level and form, they wouldn't think twice before attacking him. Hearing the war god's warning, Saber remained calm. The forest he planned to initiate his attack was just a mile away from them. Once he had entered the forest, he could take down the elves one by one. Considering the Dark Queen ordered him to try to knock them out instead of killing them, Saber had to strategize a bit. Killing them was easy, maybe except for the war god, but the other elves would stand no chance against Saber. The Dark Lord's potions not only took away a vampire's weakness to sunlight but also enhanced their abilities such as speed, momentum, and power of their attacks. Especially the potion he and Adelia took was several times more potent than the rest. With Saber's battle experience and enhanced abilities, he could match the war god's fusion stage level 9 cultivation. But first, Saber needed to get into the forest. "I will if you hand over your space rings." "This is a robbery, my friends," the war god looked amused, while the other elves looked a bit confused. They thought Saber was crazy. The elves weren't wrong to think so. Anyone who dared to rob the Gondolin elves was nothing but crazy. Even if this party did not belong to the war god and a commoner was in the war god's place, the Empress' wrath would be the same. Trying to rob a Gondolian was a crime punishable by a long and painful death in Gondolin. Saber knew that, yet he couldn't care less. The Dark Queen scared him more than the Empress ever could. In fact, the Dark Queen scared almost everyone in the army more than the Dark Lord himself. Sometimes, he would understand and be merciful if one of his subordinates fucked up something. Mercy would go out the window if the matter was handled by the Dark Queen. 7 months ago, Saber noticed the Dark Queen literally axed someone to death because he dared to speak about the order in public for fame. She didn't even allow anyone to bury the pieces. It took the crows a week to clean the flesh off his bones. After that display of cruelty, no one dared to speak about the order ever again. He doubted the Empress could ever be some close to the Dark Queen in terrifying people. Saber had no idea how wrong he was. There was a dark side to the Empress that no one had ever seen or lived to tell tales about. Killing the war god would be a good way to see this dark side. Luckily, it was not Saber's intention to kill them, at least he would try not to. "How do you plan to accomplish that feat with your cultivation level?" asked the war god. If Michael was here, he would recognize the thick British accent and be surprised by it. In fact, all the elves in Gondolin talked in an accent that resembled a British accent. "Ask nicely, perhaps," Saber chuckled. "Let's kill him, yeah, why are we wasting time on this weasel?" "Human scum," the elves began to raise their voices. They might not be as racist as the elves of Nelnithor, but still, they were racist enough to flay Saber alive for looking them in the eyes. Almost all the elves had a superiority complex. They treated every other race with scorn and distance, even their racial cousins, the Dark Elves. They had no idea Saber neither cared nor that he was a human. "Cultivation is not the only way to gauge someone's power," said Saber. These were not his words but the Dark Lord's. "So you want back off?" The war god slightly tilted his head. A golden radiant appeared around the war god. His eyes glimmered with killing intent. Just this aura was enough to kill a typical body-strengthening stage cultivator. The war god knew this. Hence he was a bit surprised that Saber remained alive instead of puking blood and falling down. Sar calmly stood atop his flying sword and stared at the elves. "Am I supposed to be scared?" "Now you know I am not a run-of-the-mill thief," Saber calmly said. His voice oozed with arrogance and pride of being the Dark Lord's subordinate. At first, Saber felt forced and embarrassed to serve someone else other than himself. But after a year, he felt nothing but pride. The Dark Lord was the most feared and powerful man in the world. He was lucky to serve him and support the Dark Lord in his path to eradicate the Great Eight clans as well as the Sky Hall. "You're just stupid with a little trick up his sleeve," the war god said. He was nonchalant. Unless this thief was a half-immortal, the war god had no problem killing him. "End him," said the war god. He didn't bother to attack Saber himself. Instead, he let one of his minions deal with Saber. The elf cracked his knuckles before hovering toward Saber. Since he was at the soul refining stage, he thought he could take on Saber. Saber remained calm as still water. When the elf approached, he grabbed Saber by his neck. Saber slowly squirmed, turning his back toward the forest. The elf clenched his fist. Almost everyone in the world knew about the elves and their arrogance. They liked to toy with their foes before killing them, especially the weak ones. Since Saber pretended to be a body-strengthening stage, the elf smiled with amusement. He balled his fist and punched Saber in the chest. Upon the elf's fist hitting Saber's chest, a booming sound resonated. Saber was sent flying. The elf watched Saber flying toward the forest. Saber took advantage of the situation by intentionally flying into the forest. He crashed through the canopy, breaking several branches. Dash. The war god's gaze turned cold. "Finish what you've started," the war god said with a murderous tone. Just his voice alone was enough to make the elves tremble. "I will return with his head," said the elf who punched Saber. The elf immediately flew into the forest, following Saber's trail. After the elf disappeared into the foliage, the war god turned his gaze toward the other elves. "Go on. Help him. Come with his head or don't come at all," the war god grinned like a devil. The elves dared not to linger any second longer. Compared to the other war gods, Bellinor was the kindest. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given the thief an option to escape. Any other war gods would have torn him to pieces the moment they found out he was following them. But even Bellinor had his limits. After sending the elves to hunt down Saber, Bellinor hovered above the forest. For some reason, Bellinor felt something amiss. The thief did not seem like an ordinary thief. Something was definitely strange about him. An ordinary thief wouldn't have dared to mess with a war god. The forest the elves entered was oak-brown and primitive. The grasses they stepped on were crackly beneath their feet because of the recent dry spell. One would be in awe of the size and majesty of the trees, but not these elves. They were not here to enjoy the beauty but to kill a human. The trees' knotted arms rose ever upwards, as far as one's head could lift. They were hoary fortresses and stood proudly. The orchestra of birdsong suddenly stopped as the elves entered. A pair of jays were screeching high up in the canopy of the trees. These scavengers of the bird world sensed the murderous aura around the elves. Their eyes gleamed with delight as they hoped they could eat fresh meat soon. Spread out. He must be here somewhere. One of you stay in the air and make sure he doesn't fly away, an elf barked orders at the others. When did you become the boss of us? Asked another elf scornfully. Why don't we go to Bellinor and ask him? Fuck you. The elves scattered through the forest quickly after hearing Bellinor's name instead of bitching. The elves spread their focus around them to find Saber. Little did they know Saber was watching them and waiting for them to spread out. The elves thought they were hunting Saber, but it was the other way around. With darkness and forest to his advantage, Saber had the battle in hand. Chapter 787, Taking out one by one inside the forest, Saber watched the elves from a safe distance. He could feel their senses. Whenever he felt their senses getting close to him, he leaped away from one branch to another. As though nature wanted to add some twist to their situation, dark clouds soon gathered in the sky above the forest. Saber heard the thunder rumbling. The wetness in the air suddenly increased, warning Saber about the upcoming heavy downpour. Everything under the thick canopy rustled. He heard the elves growl. They hated getting their hands dirty. These elves were natured in palaces and mansions. Thus, they hated everything related to dirt. The elves hovered above the ground to avoid stepping on the mud. Saber could pinpoint each and every elf in the forest. They were searching for him alone, which was a big mistake. Watching a lone elf, Saber silently broke a twig. He aimed at the ground a few meters away from the elf and threw it to distract him. The sudden noise startled the elf. As Saber expected, the elf moved toward where he heard the sound. Because the elves thought Saber was just a body-strengthening stage cultivator, the elves did not put a defense shield around him. Their pride and arrogance prevented them from doing so. Saber utilized this situation. He slowly flew toward the elf without making a sound. The elf's neck hair stood up as he sensed someone approaching him. But before he could react, Saber grabbed the elf from behind. He squeezed the elf's neck until his skin turned purplish. The elf's body gradually stopped twitching as he lost consciousness. Saber did not waste any second. He immediately jumped into the top of a tree. Saber took out some ropes and tied the elf against the tree. Saber could have easily taken the elf's life but chose not to. Leaving the elf behind, Saber moved toward his next target. After leaping from tree to tree for a few moments, Saber reached his target. The elf had a deep frown on his face. He did not like to be in the forest at all. Unfortunately for the elf, the sky broke open, pouring water in full force. The big rain droplets rushed through the canopy with an unearthly sound. Fuck you, rain, the elf cursed the rain. Streaks of lightning decorated the dark sky. Soon, Saber heard an ear-piercing thunder. Saber immediately dashed at the elf to take him out. The elf did not expect someone to jump from above. Before he could react, Saber landed straight on the elf's shoulder. The sheer force of Saber's landing dislocated the elf's shoulder and knocked him out cold. Just like earlier, Saber grabbed the elf, leaped onto the tree, and tied him with ropes. Saber expected the war god to intervene any second, yet to his surprise, the war god just hovered in the sky, getting drenched in the rain. Saber had a strange feeling that the war god was watching him. But if he did, Saber wondered why he wasn't attacking him. It was strange behavior for a war god. For now, Saber ignored this feeling and continued to hunt down the elves. The heavy downpour came with howling wind. Soon, all the trees in the forest started to sway in a single direction. Some trees looked like they were about to get uprooted from the ground. Luckily for Saber, the rain and thunderclaps covered any sound Saber or an elf made. Saber quickly flew to the third elf while keeping an eye on the fourth and final elf. As Saber moved closer, he noticed a faint glow around the elf. The rain droplets vaporized upon hitting the glow around the elf. Hence, the elf remained dry and cozy. But the elf's coziness was short-lived as Saber leaped onto him, breaking the shield with a single punch. The shield exploded at the same time when a thunderclap resonated through the forest. The thunderclap masked the sound of the shield exploding and the elf growling. Saber did a quick work hiding the unconscious elf just like before. Finally, only one elf remained. Saber wanted something special for the elf because he was the one who punched Saber earlier. As a proud elder vampire and a subordinate of the Dark Lord, it was only natural that Saber would pay back his debt in multiple folds. He was almost tempted to kill the elf. Thinking about what to do with the elf, Saber flew through the forest like a rustling wind. The elf in the air was in direct eye contact with the war god. Hence, attacking him would be equal to attacking the war god himself. Dash. As the elf was told, he was searching for Saber. Saber intentionally left his flying sword behind when he crashed into the forest earlier. It was to confuse and make the elves look for him on the ground. Since a body-strengthening stage cultivator could not fly, they didn't bother to look above. Plus, Saber left some blood on the ground for the elves to follow. The elf was following the trail of blood to track down Saber. Little did he know Saber was watching him from behind. The elf was too focused on the train and failed to notice anything around him. "Did you see him flying away?" Suddenly, the elf shouted as the birds resting in the forest scattered away. The elf didn't bother to lower his voice. Even though they weren't in Gondolin, they acted otherwise. For them, all of Aur belonged to them, the superior race of all. They could conquer all Aur if they wished to because Gondolin had the mightiest army in the world. However, even the dwarves couldn't match the elven might. The dwarves could indeed build hundreds of new contraptions but could never compete with elven rune magic. Moreover, the dwarves were blessed with an innate talent to build but not the talent for cultivation. Hence, they lacked powerful warriors like the war gods of Gondolin. Of course, some dwarves were an exception to the rule. But they were rare and not enough to defeat the elven kingdoms. "No, he is still in there," the elf in the air replied with the same volume. War god Bellinor watched the scene with an amused smile. These elves were just there with him to entertain. He felt bored traveling alone to the aqua auction. So although Bellinor cared for them, they weren't his friends. Otherwise, he would be in the forest with them, not watching them getting their asses kicked. "I am getting closer to him," the elf in the forest shouted. Judging by the blood on the ground, the elf assumed the thief had crawled somewhere and died. Saber slowly moved toward the elf without making a sound. At that moment, he was just a few meters away from the elf's senses. Saber was careful not to alert the elf. It was no fun that way. Eventually, the elf reached the blood trail's end. To the elf's surprise, he didn't find a body as he hit a dead end. The elf looked around. He creased his brows. What the hell? The elf was confused. The blood trail disappeared suddenly. As he was looking around, he heard a cracking sound a few meters away from the blood trail. His elven ears twitched as he followed the sound. It was Saber who broke a couple of twigs with stones. Saber waited for the elf to move away from the blood trail. When the elf reached the place where he saw nothing but some tall and thick bushes under a giant tree, he felt a chill. His senses detected a life sign near him. The elf immediately reached for his weapon. Hello. Saber landed right before him and grabbed his arm. Saber did not knock him out with one punch, although he could do it easily. Instead, Saber punched the elf just like he did. Yet the elf didn't go flying because Saber held his arm. The elf groaned, but the sizzling sound of heavy rain hitting the canopy masked the elf's sound. Saber hit him once again in the face, breaking the elf's nose with a sickening crunch. Blood oozed out of the elf's nose. The elf's consciousness slowly slipped off. Despite his soul-refining cultivation, he couldn't withstand a powerful fusion-stage vampire's punch filled with rage. He was lucky Saber was ordered not to kill them. The smell of blood tempted Saber to sink his teeth into the elf's neck. Even though the Dark Lord's cure for the vampires cured their lust for blood, it didn't take away their temptation. In other words, a vampire had no need to drink blood, but they could if they wished to. The Dark Lord didn't order them to stop drinking blood because it would be like asking a human to stop drinking water. But he couldn't let the vampires wreak havoc within kingdoms. Hence, Michael let them give up to their temptation if they found an evil foe. To put it differently, they were ordered not to harm any innocent. Until now, no vampire under the Dark Lord had ever hurt an innocent for blood. They only imagined what would happen if they did. Judging by the look on the elf's face, Saber realized one more punch might kill him. Because of that, Saber had to stop hitting them, though he would like to punch the elf more. Since he was the last elf in the forest, Saber didn't bother to hide him. He just left him on the ground and leaped onto a branch. Come out and deal with him too. Suddenly, Saber heard Belliner's voice. It sounded louder than a thunderclap. Saber wasn't surprised as he felt the war god was watching him. A mere forest wouldn't be able to prevent a war god from seeing what was happening to his men. Saber's eyes glistened with excitement. After a long, long time, he was going to battle a worthy opponent. The elf in the air frowned. Unlike Belliner, he had no idea what had transpired within the forest. He was completely stunned when he saw the lowly thief flying through the canopy without a flying sword. Furthermore, he wasn't harmed at all. The elf couldn't help thinking the worst. He trembled slightly in fear. We should do this alone, said Belliner. To Saber's surprise, he just flicked his wrist as a blast of wind knocked out the elf in a blink of an eye. It was a show of power. Honestly, it really surprised Saber. He knocked out a soul refiner with a flick of his wrist. Shall we begin? Belnair asked after knocking out the elf. Both had no fear in their eyes but glimmering excitement. Chapter 788, Stalemate Battle. Saber cracked his fist, preparing himself to battle the war god. The war god remained calm. He wanted Saber to make his first move. Just as he expected, Saber did make his first move. He dashed at the war god with speed beyond any fusion stage cultivators. The cosmic energy, coupled with the Dark Lord's potion, enhanced his speed to the point the war god himself was surprised by his speed. Saber even left some afterimages on his trail. Although Belliner was surprised by his speed, it was not enough to catch him off guard. The war god simply snapped his finger as a golden crescent wave blasted off Saber. As Saber was flying in the air backward, a small glimmer of light enveloped Saber's body. Each war god had their own unique way of fighting and armor. Only a few had seen a war god's battle armor and lived to tell tales about it. Luckily Saber received a rare opportunity to see the armor. It was a set of armor with a squared helm and a squared, T-shaped opening, leaving the eyes, nose, and mouth exposed. Attached to the top was a sun-shaped metal ornament piece. The shoulders were oval, quite short and small in size. They were decorated with a row of metal feathers, all pointing upwards. The row reached from side to side. The upper arms were protected by squared, half-covering rear braces, which sat well under the shoulder plates. While the lower arms were covered by vambraces which had many small metal spikes covering the vambraces all over. The real beauty of the armor was its chest plate. It was made from a couple of metal layers, mimicking dragon scales. It covered everything from the neck down and ended at the groin. Following the upper body, the armor slowly covered his lower body. The upper legs were covered by squared, fully covering cuisses as greaves protected the lower legs with several arrowheads attached on the outer sides as if arrows had pierced the legs. Bellinor glowed like a sun in the night sky. He cracked his neck as Saber finally steadied himself. "That's nice armor," Saber commented about Bellinor's armor. "Enjoy the sight while you still can," said Bellinor. The armor glimmered brighter and brighter to the point Saber's eyes had to adjust for its light. The war god wasted no time as he dashed at Saber. He was almost as fast as Saber, or even faster. Saber instinctively cast a spell. In a blink of an eye, a torrent made of blood appeared around Saber. The blood shield protected Saber from the war god's punch. Bellinor punched the blood shield with enough force to send Saber flying. Blood splashed across the sky. But this time, Saber didn't go flying as before. Instead, he steadied himself quickly and dashed at the war god faster than before. This time, Saber punched the war god right in the chest. The war god raised his arms to protect himself. His hands went numb when he blocked Saber's punch. The sheer force pushed back Bellinor. Saber did not stop as he punched the war god again and again. Their battle produced thunderous explosions that echoed through the night sky. Countless trees got uprooted by their battle. The aftershock decimated the forest below them. For them, they were just punching each other. But in reality, they were two powerful fusion stage warriors. The energy produced by their battle was enough to cause more damage than a natural disaster. They didn't give a damn about the environment. Instead, they fought like beasts. Saber raised his hand as a vulture made of blood materialized above them. It was gigantic. Compared to the blood vulture, Saber and Bellinor looked small. The bird cast a large shadow in the clouds when lightning flashed across the sky. As soon as the blood vulture appeared in the sky, the air started to reek of blood. It glared at Bellinor with its hollow eyes. The blood vulture tried to peck Bellinor with its long gigantic beak. Bellinor clapped his hands together as a powerful shock wave shot out of his hands. As though it was a living bird, the blood vulture screeched. Blood scattered in all directions as the vulture faded away from existence. However, before it completely disappeared from sight, it managed to scratch Bellinor. Dash. An ear-piercing screech resonated from the armor. Fortunately for Bellinor, the armor saved his skin. Except for a small chunk of armor, he lost nothing. Saber didn't wait for the war god to retaliate. Instead, he pressed his attack. Saber's fist glowed in crimson red. Every punch Saber threw had enough force to scatter a boulder to pieces. Bellinor's armor glowed brighter and brighter until it exploded, creating a powerful shock wave. Saber went flying as the armor lost its glow. Bellinor raised his hand as a golden fist appeared behind Saber. Sensing a threat, Saber immediately cast the blood shield again. Upon the fist striking the shield, it created a thunderous explosion. The shield and fist exploded at the same time, creating a mist of red and gold. Both of them completely ignored the mist and dashed at each other once again. Their eyes glimmered with battle lust. In mid-sky, they went all in. Neither of them held back. No one under the fusion stage could see their moves but only a blur. A few moments later, they stopped attacking each other. When they stopped, each had blood flowing down from the corner of their mouths. Bellinor wiped off the blood from his mouth and smiled, looking at his own blood. "It had been a long time since I've seen my blood," said Bellinor. He was not gloating but telling the truth. The war gods usually lived a peaceful life since no one had dared to attack Gondolin or an elven nation for the past 10 years. So Bellinor was excited to fight a worthy foe after such a long time. Moreover, the one whom the elves thought was weakling, pathetic human scum had actually made Bellinor bleed. "There is more where that came from," Saber snickered. "Is that so?" Bellinor tilted his head before taking a deep breath. His skin glowed as all cuts and bruises healed up automatically. Saber and Belnor readied for the second round. In a blink of an eye, they flew toward each other. To Saber's surprise, an ethereal lion head materialized behind Belnor. It was just as big as the blood vulture cast by Saber. The head roared as ripples appeared in the sky. All the storm clouds faded out of existence because of the roar. As a result, the heavy rain stopped. Saber's ears rang. Even his vision turned blurry for a moment. The trees that escaped their previous attack got completely decimated by the roar. Below them, there was a large crater filled with broken trees. But they couldn't care less. On the contrary, they focused on the battle. Their minds and eyes were filled with battle lust. It had been a long time since they both fought a worthy opponent. Usually, they would kill their foe within a minute or minute top. But this battle went on for almost 5 minutes without a victor. They both fought on equal terms, and Belnor wanted to change that. The lion finally stopped roaring. It felt like a storm had passed them. Without the heavy rain, silence returned to the area. Saber closed his eyes for a second as the blood vulture appeared in the sky again. The vulture locked its gaze on the lion. On the other hand, the lion growled at the vulture as though they were both alive and had emotions. Soon, they lunged at each other, just as Belnor and Saber did. Their battle intensified. The vulture and lion head tried to bite each other. While they were battling it out, Saber and Belnor exchanged blows. They dived down, attacking each other. In the moment of heat, they forgot there was a crate down. They hit the ground with enough force to form a mini crater within the large crater. The force split them apart as they crashed in opposite directions. Their clothes became completely drenched with mud. They immediately jumped back to their feet to go all out again. Unlike before, they didn't dash at each other, at least Belnor didn't. He stayed still and punched the ground below. Several cracks formed in the ground and spread throughout like spider webs. Saber leaped into the air to avoid being knocked down. He wondered what Belnor was trying to accomplish. But he soon got his answer when he picked up a large boulder and threw it at him. The boulder was easily twice the size of an elephant. Yet Belnor threw it like it was nothing. Saber didn't fly away but punched the boulder with his bare hand. The boulder exploded. But before the debris could hit the ground, Belnor shot through the debris, hitting Saber in the face at speed beyond Saber's expectation. The war god's punch and speed put a smile on Saber's face. He realized the war god was unleashing his full potential. His entire body glowed like a mini sun. The heat radiating from Belnor's body turned the debris into ashes. Saber quickly covered himself with a blood shield to protect himself from burning. Saber fought back with blood punches. Belnor glowed in golden radiance while Saber radiated a crimson-red light due to the blood shield around him. As they were fighting, a golden light materialized in Belnor's hand. It was a golden spear with a red cloth wrapped around its top. Belnor stabbed Saber at lightning speed. The blade cut his rib cage, barely missing Saber's heart. "Cheeky bastard," Saber snickered. He didn't expect Belnor to take out his weapon suddenly. Now that Belnor had taken out his weapon, Saber conjured his blood sword. The sword produced an evil aura with red smoke. Both these weapons belonged to the legendary class. Hence, they created an aftershock upon clashing. They fought on the same level. As much as they liked to gain an advantage over another, they simply couldn't. Unknown to them, the Dark Queen watched the battle from a distance. She trusted Saber, but she also couldn't afford to lose the armor piece.